Hey friends, hope you're all doing well. We're doing okay too, just really tired since we've been working non-stop. We wanted to answer a question many of you ask: how does our publishing process work? Most of our audiobooks are first posted on Patreon as paid content. They stay behind a paywall for a few months. After that, they become free to access on Patreon forever. Then, a few weeks later, we upload them to other platforms like YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter, X. Lately, our community hasn't been growing much, and we could really use your help. Please share our site in your Facebook groups, Discord servers, Reddit threads, Twitter, X, or with any friends who might be interested. Every little bit helps and we really appreciate it. Thanks a lot for being with us and supporting what we do. Rusukana Island? I remember that there were many powerful beasts on that island. Sandersonia and Marigold were surprised. They naturally knew Rusukana Island, and they had also gone there to practice. Unexpectedly, Luke was planning to go there. Luke, what are you going to do there? Hancock asked puzzledly while looking at Luke's handsome face with sapphire-clear eyes. The beasts on that island are quite powerful. Even she, the Empress of Amazon Lily, would have to work hard if she didn't use her devil fruit ability when facing the most powerful beasts. But her observation haki is not a decoration either. After Luke appeared, he didn't try too hard to restrain his aura. That hidden and unbelievably powerful haki made her, the Empress of the Amazon Lily, feel a little frightened. It's impossible to go there specifically to hone himself. After all, those beasts obviously cannot threaten Luke now. It is precisely because the beasts there are quite powerful that I plan to catch some back to expand the size of the beast legion under my command. Luke didn't hide it and gave a brief introduction. By the way, speaking of this, he thought of something. Pointing to the empty town, he looked at the three sisters. Came to think of it, is it because of the hoof of the soaring dragon on your body that you are so grand? Hearing this, the expressions of the three sisters changed. With a brushing sound, their face turned a little pale. The three of them were kidnapped by human traffickers when they were young, became slaves of the celestial dragons, and were branded with the hoof of the soaring dragon. This irrevocable mark of humiliation has become a pain that can never be healed in the seemingly strong but actually sensitive and fragile hearts of the three sisters. I made you laugh, Luke. After taking a deep breath, Sandersonia lowered her head and said bitterly, because if the people find out that we have been slaves, we will not be able to stay in this country. Although this method is a bit too overbearing, for the sake of safety, we have no choice. Marigold's eyes were dim, and she smiled helplessly. Once the slave marks on their backs are discovered, the three sisters have no face to stay in this country. Hancock looked pale and pursed his lips tightly. She looked directly at Luke, her voice a little loud. Will you look down on us? Of course not, Luke said calmly. He looked at Hancock's pretty face and comforted her with a smile. Be confident, you are the most beautiful woman in the world who has fascinated countless people. Humphrey, this is natural. I was just blinded by the wind and sand for a moment. Hancock blushed, then she couldn't help but turn her head away and wipe the tears from the corners of her eyes. In front of this man, she must maintain the last trace of pride and regain the coldness and beauty of the past. But there is no longer the arrogance and indifference of the past, which rejected others thousands of miles away. Yeah? Luke smiled and didn't say much. He just looked at the three sisters in front of him and said with a smile, if you want to eliminate the marks behind your back, I know that there is a little human princess in the new world who has the heal fruit. Her devil fruit ability should be able to do this. Really? Hearing Luke's words, for a moment, the three sisters could not help but be filled with excitement. They clenched their fists tightly and looked at Luke eagerly, fearing that they would hear an answer like I was just joking from the other person's mouth. Of course it's true. I'll bring her over next time I come here. Luke nodded. To him, this is a piece of cake. He is going to dress Rosa soon. At this time, the little human princess had not yet been captured by the Don Quixote family and was still living with her tribe on Greenbit Island next to Dressrosa. Even if there is no need to use force, with the innocent and kind-hearted character of Princess Mancherry, it is impossible to refuse to eliminate the hoof of the soaring dragon behind the three sisters. Thank you, Luke. Hancock is full of surprises, then like gems, her watery eyes look at Luke with indescribable gratitude. This man helped them again. That's great, woo. Even Sandersonia and Marigold couldn't help but cover their mouths with tears in their eyes. In the end, the two sisters hugged each other tightly and cried with joy. Thank you very much, Mr. Luke. After a long time, with tears streaming down their faces, Sandersonia and Marigold turned around in surprise and joy. Then, they bowed deeply to Luke and expressed their sincere gratitude to this great benefactor. If the marks behind them could be eliminated, the three sisters would no longer have to cover up so carefully and painstakingly weave lies. You're welcome, We can all be considered friends. For me, this is just a matter of convenience." Luke waved his hand. "Princess Mancheri, who has the heel fruit. He must try his best to recruit, deceive, her. If he can use this method to gain Hancock's gratitude, who is the most beautiful woman in the world, why not do it?" Looking at the sky outside, Luke said goodbye directly. "It's getting late, and we can't keep your citizens waiting outside the city for too long, Hancock. I'll take my leave first." "Well, then you. Take care of yourself." Looking at Luke's face, Hancock felt reluctant to let him leave. "Don't worry, when I find the little human princess in New World, I will bring her here directly," Luke promised with a smile under the extremely excited and reluctant eyes of the three sisters. The days were long, and he had no intention of staying any longer. His whole body sank into the shadows at a speed visible to the naked eye and disappeared. Chapter 180, Luke's arrangement deep in the calm belt. Rusukana Island, adjacent to Amazon Lily. Deep in the lush green forest, frightening roars of beasts can be heard from time to time. In an inconspicuous shadow, Luke's tall figure suddenly appeared. Well, the overall strength of these beasts seems to be much stronger than expected. He closes his eyes to feel it, and then his powerful observation hockey spreads out. There were thousands of life forces that were not weak, making Luke smile. It is indeed quite good material. Considering the shadows of the prisoners in the underwater prison were turned into shadowkin with the strength level of officers above the rank of captain in Marine, excluding the weakest, these beasts can at least fight 4 or 5 of them. The Beast Legion can now truly take shape. After all, most of the beasts on the Thriller bark were captured from Little Garden. In terms of strength, it is really limited. When all the powerful beasts on this island are eliminated and implanted by the shadow of a strong man to create a large number of beast zombies, he can have a veritable army of beasts. It can be combined with the zombie army and the shadowkin army. "It's getting late, I have to work quickly." Luke stretched his muscles while looking at the sky, which was about to darken. A flash of red light suddenly flashed in his eyes, and he boldly activated the awakened ability of the shadow fruit, the Shadow Torrent. In an instant, the whole island seemed to be shaking. The extremely terrifying aura made countless giant beasts panic and roar while fleeing in panic. However, on this island, where can they escape? Snakes, insects, rats, ants, birds and beasts, rocks and trees. The endless shadows all seemed to have self-awareness and come alive. All of a sudden, they broke away from the original main body and gathered in Luke's direction, one after another. At a speed visible to the naked eye, it turned into a black torrent that submerged those extremely ferocious beasts trying to escape. Rumble. The entire Rusukana Island ushered in an unprecedented disaster. All the stronger beasts were swept and submerged by the black shadow without place to hide, and no place to escape. Less than a few minutes. Densely packed carcasses of beasts were washed away by the vast torrent of black shadows and gathered in front of Luke. These corpses are piled up like a mountain, and they are all intact. But without exception, they have lost their breath of life. Then, tentacles made of black shadows poked out, their tips were strung with human figures of struggling shadows. Luke, who was well prepared, carried with him the shadows of many powerful men plundered from blazing hell, freezing hell, etc. And immediately made a contract. One after another, they were implanted into the corpses of these beasts. "In my name, O Bask Luke, I will give you new life. From now on, you will forget your past, be loyal to me, never betray, and become my loyal slaves." Endless black shadows surge out. Luke's eyes shone with the frightening red light. Resurrection, Beast Army. Boom. All of a sudden, the Black Panther, Giant Wolf, Rhinoceros, Saber-toothed Tiger, Mammoth. One after another, the beasts lost their breath of life, and their hearts stopped beating. They opened their ferocious eyes and roared in unison. The momentum is huge, and the scene is spectacular. The only thing that's different. They were the corpses of several huge beasts headed by them. Not yet resurrected by Luke. A red giant ape, a blue giant ape, a huge lion, a huge crocodile. These giant beasts are undoubtedly the most powerful beasts on Rusukana Island. The boss of Rusukana Island? Don't let me down. A dozen marble-sized shadow balls flew out. Those were clearly the shadows of the prisoners plundered from eternal hell. But then shadow strings appeared in Luke's palm in an instant, connecting them in series. In the blink of an eye, the shadows of many powerful men with considerable strength had been stitched into several combined shadows. Whoosh! Amidst the surging black shadows, the dark tentacles, like vines, danced uncontrollably. It directly penetrated these combined shadows with quite an astonishing aura, leaving them struggling there. But soon Luke made a master-servant contract, making them quiet, then he cut off the shadows of the corpses of these giant beasts, allowing them to devour them. Finally, these combined shadows were implanted into the bodies of these beasts. Not long after, several giant beasts with huge bodies and violent momentum opened their fierce eyes and stood upright while roaring. That guy, Budge, has completed his mission, right? Looking at these amazing beasts, Luke smiled with satisfaction. If he wants to bring so many beasts back, he obviously still needs to rely on the castle fruit ability. Brush. He stomped down with his feet. On the ground, a bloated black shadow appeared. Luke-sama. Shadow Budge, the tool man, knelt down on one knee. Bring them all back. After speaking, Luke's figure slowly sinks into the shadows. Understood. Back at the thriller bark. These beasts. It feels like it's stronger than me. TSK, what an incredible group of guys. Wahaha, that orangutan must be very strong, right? The leaders are probably stronger than zombie generals like Wang Zhenjian. Watching those being released by Capone Budge from the inner castle one after another. Legions of ferocious beasts with unbelievable momentum and incomparable ferocity crowded the area outside the training ground. Although they are not as good as those special zombies, the strength of these beast legions is still pretty good. Luke crossed his arms and said directly to everyone in the Netherworld pirate present, from today on, both them and the zombie legions will be your training partners. In addition to relevant training in the future, you must defeat these guys, and you are prohibited from using Devil Fruit's ability to fight. You will just use your own swordsmanship or physical skills. It is not enough to just immerse yourself in hard work and just work behind closed doors. It still takes a lot of actual combat to turn this hard work into one's own strength. He deliberately recruited these seeds with great potential, not just to let them enjoy their happiness. As navigators, Nami and Lafitte, you two also need to learn relevant weather knowledge. I have already sent people to invite those climate scientist experts. Chapter 181, March into the New World. Little ones, set sail and march into the New World. 3 days later. On the thriller bark. On the top floor of the central castle, Luke raised his right arm high. His tone was sonorous and passionate, and he announced loudly, "It's time to announce our arrival to the world and put this sky and sea under our feet." Oh. In the square below, members of the Netherworld pirates, such as Law, Kid, Wiper, Kuro, Lafitte, Urge, Brooke, Van Auger, Hogback, and Bartolomeo, are the most full of fighting spirit. There were countless zombies and the Shadowkins, who were also holding weapons and shouting. The momentum is huge and exciting. Ho! Ho! In the square formation of the Beast Legion, led by a majestic red giant ape. A large number of extremely ferocious beasts were also not to be outdone, and they all roared there with astonishing momentum. Finally going back to Dressrosa. Violet pursed her lips, her tearful eyes were full of complexity. She couldn't help clenching her pink fists, feeling indescribable excitement in her heart. She can finally take revenge on the Don Quixote family and take back Dressrosa. Not just Violet but Law, who was in the crowd, was equally excited. In order to kill Doflamingo and take revenge for his great benefactor, Mr. Corazon. He did not hesitate to accept Luke's invitation to join the Netherworld pirates. Hey, then leave it to me. A tall figure wearing a prison guard uniform flew out. With two famous doctors, Hogbaku and Law, Shiryu, who had recovered from his injuries to a great extent, pressed down on the thriller bark with one hand. Fly. For a while, the whole giant ship trembles, and the sea surface turns rough. The huge thriller bark rose into the sky and broke away from the sea. There are also the warships surrounding and guarding the left and right sides. One after another, they rushed into the sky and flew towards the distance. Luke-sama, we have found the location of Punk Hazard. At the central castle, in the top office. A Shadowkin emerged from the shadows and reported there. Oh? Luke raised his eyebrows and said directly to Robin, who was sorting out the information, "Robin, I'll leave the situation here to you, I have to leave." These days, the Shadowkin army he sent out has quietly buried a large number of Vivre cards on many islands where the coordinates have been explored. Are you going to Punk Hazard? Robin, on the side, was surprised. She is responsible for the intelligence of the Netherworld pirate that was secretly delivered by Karina, the top executive of Vinay's lobby. In addition, Luke has been telling them some important secrets about world government one after another these days. She has a more detailed and comprehensive understanding of the behemoth world government. Of course, she knows about Punk Hazard. That is the secret research base where the marine science unit under the world government is located. Luke, do you want to seize that genius scientist Dr. Vegapunk directly? Robin looked at Luke, and her pupils shrank. Once Vegapunk is taken away, that's no less than stirring up a hornet's nest. Those guys in world government are going crazy. Why not? Luke turned around and chuckled, we have already fully seen his talent. Judge has achieved such an achievement just by using some of his achievements in his youth. If we let him stay in world government and develop some incredible things for those guys, he will be a huge threat to us. His eyes flickered. He knows the trump card of world government very well. That piece is most likely the national treasure of ancient weapon, Uranus, and it is absolutely impossible to use it often. As long as Dr. Vegapunk does not develop an energy source like the Mother Flame, the world government will not be able to replenish energy for it. The most important thing is that Shadowkins are different from zombies because they can be independent of the main body and do not need to use other people's bodies as bodies, so they will not be affected by the corpses. They have a thinking consciousness and fighting instinct that are closer to their own bodies and can do things that zombies cannot. Use Vegapunk's shadow to create Shadowkin. To a certain extent, it is equivalent to the clone of Dr. Vegapunk himself. Even if his scientific research ability is not as good as Vegapunk himself, he believes it will not be much worse. Definitely far more than other scientists. At least if it's a collaboration with Vent Smoke Judge. The clone army that Luke wants to build, as well as the plans of Artificial Devil Fruit, Pacifista and even Seraphim, may all be completed. The main thing is that he doesn't believe in Dr. Vegapunk. The world government has taken every precaution, but it was still tricked in the end. In order to avoid accidents, he decided that it would be safer to use the other party's shadow directly to create a special Shadowkin scientist. Even if he refuses to cooperate with us, his shadow is enough to replace him. Luke shrugged and said with a smile, and there is something else that I need to get. It's time to snatch that artificial devil fruit. In fact, it's not just the artificial devil fruit that Vegapunk, this genius scientist, developed using Kaido's lineage factor. There are many things at Punk Hazard that grab his interest. For a long time, the world government has secretly carried out experiments on human enlargement. No one knows how much it has cost, but they all end in failure. Countless experimental subjects and failed products, including giants and even ancient giants. A large number of corpses are frozen deep in Punk Hazard. But there is no rush right now, he will continue to eat the food one bite at a time. Just wait until the Netherworld pirates have established a foothold in the New World, and then pick them up. By then, there will be another group of powerful combat forces. Then you have to be careful. Robin knew that Luke had made up his mind, so naturally, she would not dissuade him. Anyway, no one in this sea can trap him. Don't worry, you'll be back soon. Just do it. Luke's entire body sank into the shadows at a speed visible to the naked eye and disappeared in front of Robin. Chapter 182, Artificial Devil Fruit New World. In a huge, heavily guarded experimental base at Punk Hazard, a large number of world government agents in suits and ties, armed with live ammunition, patrolled back and forth. There are a large number of Marine personnel stationed on the periphery of the experimental base to prevent others from breaking in or trying to invade. For no other reason than this is where the Marine Science Unit, which is directly under the world government, is located. In addition to a large number of outstanding scientists from all over the world, there is also a genius scientist who claims to be 500 years ahead of current technology, Dr. Vegapunk, here. This is the reason why the world government and Marine headquarters do take it seriously. At this moment, a tall and thin figure with a head as big as a giant light bulb sighed, "It's such a pity that after investing so much money, it still failed." In front of him was an early triangular pyramid-shaped glass container. Inside, there is an apple-shaped fruit with strange circular patterns and eye-catching blue fruit. Failure? A black shadow suddenly appeared from the shadow in the corner. With a bit of sarcasm, Vegapunk, this is not a failure, is it? Otherwise, you wouldn't have deliberately destroyed the relevant research and experimental materials and refused to hand over this devil fruit to the world government. Hearing those words, Dr. Vegapunk was shocked. He turned around and looked at the tall figure who suddenly appeared at the side. "Are you Luke?" But the next moment, Luke obviously didn't mean to talk nonsense to him, and his eyes suddenly turned sharp. Buzz. An invisible wave struck. All of a sudden, Vegapunk's eyes turned white, and he foamed at his mouth. Plop. He lost consciousness instantly and fell there. "Sorry, guys like you are too dangerous, it's better to be more cautious." Luke glanced at the unconscious Dr. Vegapunk and shrugged. Stomping his at the ground, a bloated black shadow emerged. "Strip him naked, don't leave anything on him, then put him in a prison uniform and lock him up," Luke said calmly. No procrastination. He opened the triangular pyramid-shaped glass container, directly took out the artificial devil fruit, and looked at it. Is this an artificial devil fruit? Others don't know it clearly, but Luke knows very well how exaggerated this artificial devil fruit is. It can be said that it is a real success that perfectly reproduces Kaido's devil fruit, fish fruit, model, Azure Dragon. In addition to being unable to confirm whether it can be awakened. It has the same ability as the original devil fruit, but the only difference is in color. As a perfectionist, Dr. Vegapunk decided that the dragon was a failure because its color was pink. However, in Luke's opinion, the most important thing is that this guy does not want to hand over this devil fruit to the world government, nor does he want to produce other artificial devil fruit for the world government. Otherwise, he would not deliberately destroy all those research materials. Understood. Playing with the artificial devil fruit in his hand, Luke looked outside the laboratory. His observation hockey sensed different strong and weak auras, making him smile lightly. Well, they're all here, just take a few more with me. Not far from here. In a spacious laboratory, there is a figure over 3 meters tall wearing a light blue coat, long black spiky hair, and goat horns on his head. His lower body has completely turned into gas, and his whole body is floating in the air. He was holding 2 test tubes filled with dark blue reagents and filled with traces of smoke, full of excitement. Whoops, this ratio is just right. Once it is mass-produced, it will definitely be the most perfect chemical weapon. It will be just around the corner that I surpass that bastard, Vegapunk. Thump. Without warning, Caesar felt a pain in the back of his head, and he directly lost consciousness. Well, this guy is a Logia user, and he is very cunning. After stripping him naked and putting on prison clothes, locked him with a sea prism stone. An invisible figure gradually at the side. Luke, whose skin color returned to normal like a chameleon, was there giving orders. In order to prevent these scientists from taking Vivre cards or something with them, he'd rather go to some trouble and get rid of everything. Yes. From the shadows, Shadow Kaponbaj, the tool man, emerged. Then move on to the next target. Marine Headquarters, Maniford. In the Fleet Admiral's office. It's been so long, and you still haven't found Golden Lion's whereabouts. Sengoku looked gloomy. He held back his anger and asked in a deep voice. I'm very sorry, Fleet Admiral Sengoku. Adjutant Branyu wiped cold sweat and responded cautiously. Neither CP nor our Marine Intelligence Network has been able to find Golden Lion's whereabouts. They seem to have suddenly disappeared. Damn it. That bastard, wouldn't it be nice to just become a legend? He just came out to cause trouble at this time. He slapped the desk hard with gritted teeth. Most of the prisoners in Eternal Hell are ambitious and rebellious people. It is unlikely that they will be subdued by Shiki in a short time. I guess he is not that capable. Garp, who was sitting on the sofa nearby, had no intention of joking at the moment and said helplessly, but even so, the prisoners from the Crimson Hell to the Freezing Hell are all extremely vicious. They will cause big trouble once he subdues them. More troublesome things are yet to come. No matter what Sengoku says. At this time, Vice Admiral Tsuru walked in, her face more solemn than ever. This made Fleet Admiral Sengoku's heart skip a beat, and he had a bad premonition again. Tsuru, what's wrong? News just came from Punk Hazard. A dozen top scientists from all over the world, including the chief genius scientist Dr. Vegapunk, all disappeared out of thin air. Vice Admiral Tsuru had a serious face and said in a deep voice, and the surveillance can't detect any abnormalities. It's like they suddenly disappeared from the experimental base. But without exception, their clothes were thrown into the sea. In addition, several devil fruits distributed by the world government to the Marine Science Unit for research were also directly stolen. What? Whether it was Sengoku the Buddha or Garp, their expression changed drastically. He never expected that something like this would happen at this juncture. Especially Dr. Vegapunk, the world's #1 scientist, was actually kidnapped. The style of committing the crime is somewhat similar to the Impel Down invasion incident a few days ago. It was most likely done by Golden Lion. Vice Admiral Tsuru said bluntly. Boom. A palm pressed down hard. Sengoku's face was ashen, and the desk in front of him fell into pieces in an instant. Damn, is it Shiki again? Bolo. Bolo at this time, the white dendenmushi on Sengoku's desk suddenly rang. Vice Admiral Tsuru, Garp, and others on the side couldn't help but raise their eyebrows. Sengoku's eyelids twitched fiercely, but he could only pick up the dendenmushi and answer the call. Moshi Moshi, I am Sengoku. It involves Dr. Vegapunk, the world's #1 genius scientist. The response from the top leaders of the world government was obviously very quick. Sengoku, no matter what method Marine uses, you must find out that lawless guy, Golden Lion, as soon as possible and deal with him completely. From the dendenmushi came the somewhat furious and unquestionable voice of the 5 elders. We must take back Vegapunk no matter the cost. Otherwise, you should stop being a fleet admiral. Chapter 183, the major forces being targeted now, no matter how angry the world government and Marine headquarters are. The instigator had already returned to the thriller bark with his trophies. In the central castle, at the top office. Including the 2 devil fruit users, Dr. Vegapunk and Caesar, the shadows of the Marine Science Unit scientists who were kidnapped one after another were directly cut out by Luke, and contracts were made to create shadowkins. From now on, you are the scientific troops under my command, and you must obey Judge Vinsmoke's orders 100%, do you understand? Luke was there giving orders. Yes. Luke-sama. Everyone replies loudly, including Dr. Vegapunk, who still has a big head after turning into a Shadowkin. Bring them to Germa. Luke waved his hand. For the sake of safety, he planned to secretly set up a scientific research base in Germa to prevent the world government from jumping over the wall. TSK. First we emptied the world's largest underwater prison, and now we directly kidnapped the world's most talented scientist. I'm afraid the world government will go crazy now. Robin on the side said with a smile. She feels inexplicable in her heart, the ability of the shadow fruit is really too powerful. Especially the power revealed after awakening. It even makes people's scalp numb. The existence of the Shadowkin army alone can be said to be all-pervasive and difficult to guard against. With Luke's terrifying talent, if he obtains other devil fruit ability, for example, if he chooses to directly eat the rat fruit, model, side weasel, his own strength may not be weaker than it is now, and it may even be stronger. But the Netherworld pirates will never be as powerful as they are now. It will take at least several years to develop. After all, they have been a relentless enemy from the beginning, and they will be provoked sooner or later. Luke chuckled. He doesn't worry at all about angering the world government. The current Netherworld pirate may not be strong enough to challenge the world government head-on. But it can't be defeated casually. At the very least, even in the face of Marine's encirclement and suppression, they would be able to move forward and retreat freely. However, apart from these scientists, I didn't expect that there were other gains. Luke said with a smile. Kaponbaj, on the side, took out a suitcase and placed it on the desk in front of Robin. After opening it, it was actually full of devil fruit. There are 6 in total. She was a little surprised. This is. The blue one is the devil fruit, an artificial mythical zone developed by Vegapunk by extracting the Kaido's lineage factor. Luke's words shocked Robin. Looking at the blue apple in shock, she asked, is this the artificial devil fruit you mentioned? She once heard from Luke that Vegapunk had successfully developed an artificial devil fruit. She didn't expect this to be the finished product. Yes, even though it is an artificial devil fruit, it has power that surpasses most devil fruit. Looking at the artificial devil fruit, Luke couldn't help feeling a little confused. From this point of view, Vegapunk, the world's #1 genius scientist, is well deserved. After saying that, he pointed at a devil fruit with a rather strange shape and eye-catching appearance. And this? It is an unexpected surprise. It is said that it was specially sent by the world government for Vegapunk to study mythical zone, dog fruit, monster raccoon model. Have we got another mythical zone? Robin couldn't help but marvel. She has seen the devil fruit encyclopedia. Except for those unrecorded fruits, most of the devil fruits are still recognizable. It's not just the dog fruit, monster raccoon model, several other devil fruits are also quite amazing. Ancient zone, dragon fruit, Allosaurus model, dog fruit, dachshund model, Paramsha, return fruit, Paramsha, com fruit. Robin identifies those devil fruits. If law is there, I'm afraid there will be some bad expressions. Because Paramsha, com fruit was the ability of his benefactor, Kor's own, during his lifetime. It's free, don't give it up, just bring it all back. Luke said with a chuckle. In addition to the mythical zone, dog fruit, monster raccoon model, the ancient zone, Allosaurus model, and the Paramsha, return fruit are worthy of his attention. Of course, like Paramsha, com fruit. It's very good to use with the Shadowkin army to lurk. At least from Mary Jo eyes, with a profound and unfathomable heritage, in order to avoid alerting the enemy, Luke has not directly taken the risk and sent the Shadowkin army to explore. But if he cultivates a Shadowkin with the com fruit ability, he can minimize the risk of being discovered. After all, he has long been eyeing the collections of Marine headquarters, world government, and other forces. However, the Netherworld pirates have not yet officially established a foothold in the New World, and they can't push this behemoth too hastily. Otherwise, if the world government really wants to suppress the Netherworld pirate at all costs, it would lead to the inability to develop with peace of mind, and they may even face threats from other pirate emperors. That would be a big trouble. Let's not talk about the treasures and so on. At least, it would be possible to replace those devil fruits quietly first. After slowly investigating the treasure troves of the major forces and the devil fruits they collected, Judge will be able to come up with some fake fruits that can look like real ones. Luke was even considering making a batch of inferior artificial devil fruit. At that time, those guys who had high hopes from major forces, including the world government, Marine headquarters, and so on, especially rewarded devil fruit. After they eat those fruits with great expectation, They turn into all kinds of ugly monsters with strange shapes but whose strength has not improved much. Or, in the end, they don't gain any devil fruit ability. It's interesting to think about it. Chapter 184, Lucci's decision in the gorgeous hall. Luke left all the trivial matters to Robin and came downstairs and sat leisurely on the sofa while drinking wine. Beside him were two girls, Khalifa and Violet. Two graceful, youthful, and beautiful women are accompanying him. Luke. Not long after, Cuckoo and Lucci came towards him. Cuckoo, Lucci, what are you? Khalifa was surprised. Violet, on the side, was also a little curious. We have something to ask. Lucci said bluntly. You guys stand down first. Luke smiled lightly. He put down his wine glass and motioned for the two women to leave. Have you made your decision? As Khalifa and Violet left. Looking at the determined looks of the two people, Luke asked with a chuckle. Just when the Netherworld pirate fleet was about to leave the Florian Triangle. Their shadows had already been returned at his order. The purpose is obvious. That's right. I've had enough of my weak and powerless self. Lucci's tone was low, his eyes were more resolute and stern than ever before, and he looked directly at Luke. Isn't it just to kill a celestial dragon? We should be almost at the Sabati archipelago, right? After a series of blows, it made him deeply aware of his own weakness. All pride was ruthlessly shattered and was stepped into the dirt. Seeing that even Shiryu, who had just joined, could gain such powerful devil fruit. Even those members of the Netherworld pirate who are currently not as powerful as him are under Luke, Ruma, Golden Lion and those special zombies' tutelage, making them grow at an astonishing rate. Lucci could no longer sit still. He obviously couldn't accept being surpassed by these guys one after another. As long as he can get more power, even if he falls into the darkest hell. He, Rob Lucci, is willing to. I don't have any problem either. Cuckoo shrugged. Anyway, there is no turning back from the beginning. As long as it is done more covertly, it should not be discovered by the world government in a short period of time. Don't regret it? Luke asked with a smile. I will never regret it. Lucci and Cuckoo spoke simultaneously. Their expressions were full of determination, without even a trace of hypocrisy. Lucci, you should know what I really want. Luke stood up, and his gaze turned sharp as an eagle as he looked at Lucci and Cuckoo in front of him. He was not angry but had a terrifying momentum that made the two of them breathless. It's okay for Cuckoo, I believe he won't betray me. But if one day you get something comparable to those monsters, with that power, will you really not betray me? Do you think I can trust you? Rob Lucci. Cuckoo couldn't help but have a drastic change of expression, and he subconsciously looked at Lucci beside him. Whether you believe me or not is up to you, Luke. Lucci looked very calm. There was no entanglement or struggle, and his eyes were full of stubbornness and determination. When he made up his mind to come to see Luke, he had already made all the decisions and psychological preparations. Then, to Cuckoo's surprised eyes, this arrogant and prideful companion who was once called the strongest genius of CP9 before Luke. He knelt down on one knee and lowered his proud head to Luke. The only thing I can do is to prove my loyalty with actions. Luke-sama. Seeing this, Cuckoo was a little shocked. He also knelt down on one knee and said in a deep voice, Luke. Me too. Yeah? Luke's vast observation hockey covers the entire castle, and he gets the exact answer he wants. Then he couldn't help but laugh. He sat down and snapped his fingers directly. Swish. In Lucci and Cuckoo's surprised eyes, a black shadow emerged from the ground, and Luke took the devil fruit from the Shadowkin's hand before throwing it directly to Lucci. What is this? Lucci's pupils shrank sharply. He looked at this apple-shaped, somewhat strange fruit. While feeling a little excited, he looked at Luke with some disbelief. Aren't you afraid that I will run away directly after eating it? And Cuckoo swallowed his saliva, a little surprised. He didn't expect Luke to give a devil fruit directly to Lucci. Although he doesn't know what the specific devil fruit is, he believes it won't be weak. However, why did Lucci go before him? No matter how you look at it, he is more loyal and reliable, right? Is not he afraid that this guy will run away directly after getting the devil fruit ability? I got the answer I want, you have passed my test. Luke sat on the sofa. Folding his arms, he smiled and said, this is a gift I have prepared for you a long time ago. Eat it. With Violet's Paramsha, glare fruit's ability to see through people's hearts, if Rob Lucci had a trace of disguise and unwillingness in his heart just now, he would be a corpse now. This artificial devil fruit, fish fruit, model, Azure Dragon, from the beginning, Luke's best candidate was Lucci. It's just that he has been waiting for the other party to recognize the reality and make the right choice. After all, he can't just use such a powerful devil fruit to train an ungrateful person. Really? Hearing Luke say this, Lucci didn't hesitate and grabbed the devil fruit directly to take a bite. Don't you want to ask what devil fruit it is? Seeing this, Luke smiled and said, maybe it's the most common zone fruit? I won't regret the choice I made. Resisting the nausea, Lucci swallowed the whole devil fruit and said in a deep voice without any change in expression. He didn't think Luke would deliberately play tricks on him. Luke. What devil fruit ability did Lucci eat? Kiko was envious and asked curiously. He had come to his senses. Although Luke was his good friend, their identities were different now. Otherwise, Lucci, who was so proud, would not change his words directly. What if I tell you that this is an artificial devil fruit? Luke said with a smile. What? Artificial devil fruit? The two pupils couldn't help but shrink. They looked at Luke in disbelief. Artificial devil fruit? Can such a thing really be done? Kiko was shocked. This is the result of the genius scientist Dr. Vegapunk's hard work. He extracted Kaido's blood factor and spent a huge amount of money and a lot of time developing it. Looking at Lucci, who was a little doubtful, Luke said lightly, he is very good. He claimed that the experiment failed, destroyed all the research data and experimental materials, and refused to hand over the fruit. But in fact, this is a successful work. It perfectly replicates the power of the fish fruit model, Azure Dragon. Kaku and Lucci couldn't help but gasp. An artificial devil fruit that can perfectly replicate the ability of the mythical beast. It's incredible. TSK, is this possible? Kaku took a deep breath and was a little amazed. Dr. Vegapunk is really a genius scientist who claims to surpass the current scientific research of mankind for 500 years. Then it seems that my luck is really good. Lucci smiled. At the same time, he was indescribably excited. He had naturally heard of Kaido of the beasts, the strongest creature on land, sea, and air. There is no doubt that the other party's devil fruit must be incredibly strong. There is one thing I want to explain to you in advance, Lucci. Luke shrugged and reminded him, after all, it is an artificial devil fruit, even Dr. Vegapunk can't be sure whether it can awaken. Of course, you don't have to be disappointed. Even if it really can't awaken, it can still be said to be the top one among the many mythical zone. Otherwise, I wouldn't give it to you, Lucci. I believe you will soon be able to experience how powerful this devil fruit is. Chapter 185, The Dragon on the Ship Roar. A thunderous dragon roar alarmed everyone in the Netherworld pirate. Even the zombie in the Shadowkin couldn't help but surprise. With their eyes wide open, they stared surprisingly at the huge, majestic pink dragon rising into the sky. Hey, is it true? Dragon? Does such a creature really exist? Are you kidding me? Looking at the huge thing in the sky puts people under tremendous pressure. Law, Kid, Wiper, Raju, Perona, Brook, Lafitte, Raj, Hogback and others all showed expressions of surprise. On the rooftop of the castle, Luke stood there with Kaku, Robin, Califa, and Violet. Is this the power of that artificial devil fruit? Looking up at the dragon in the sky, Robin was shocked. Although she learned from Luke's mouth that this devil fruit was an experimental product that successfully reproduced the fish fruit model, Azure Dragon, she had tried her best to imagine that this artificial devil fruit must be very strong. But she really didn't expect it to be so exaggerated. Is this really what Lucci changed into? Staring blankly at the large dragon, Califa and Violet looked shocked. Incredible. Kaku marveled. If he hadn't witnessed Lucci's transformation with his own eyes, he wouldn't have believed it. This ridiculously exaggerated dragon turned out to be Lucci himself. Luke looked directly at the giant dragon above, chuckled, and said, Lucci, how do you feel? Compared to a certain 8-year-old kid, Lucci, who was already quite talented, was obviously able to easily adapt to the power of this devil fruit, and he could even control his transformation. High in the air, blossoming flame clouds appeared out of thin air. The giant pink dragon grabbed the flame cloud and steadily kept up with the thriller bark that was flying towards the distance at a very slow speed. Lucci's voice was a little hoarse but full of indescribable excitement. I can feel power in my body. Thank you so much, Luke. At this moment, he was sure that Luke really didn't perfunctory him. Lucci was inevitably a little disappointed when he heard the other party say that this artificial devil fruit might not be able to awaken. But now, feeling that unbelievable power, he was very glad that Luke chose this instead of other devil fruit. This artificial devil fruit is really too powerful. Even if this devil fruit really cannot be awakened, it is still comparable to the top mythical zone. Roar. Lucci, who transformed into a giant dragon, was so excited that he couldn't restrain himself and wanted to roar loudly. Then, he suddenly opened his mouth, and a blazing fire gathered there. Whoosh, a loud roar broke through the air. The dazzling heat breath distorted the air and flew out like lightning. It blasted into the distance. There was a loud bang. The water splashed, and the waves surged. The sea, several kilometers away, exploded. Large areas of seawater were ruthlessly evaporated by the terrifying high temperature in an instant. That's Lucci? Is that the giant dragon just now? TSK. Is this another mythical zone fruit? Watching the pink giant dragon shrink at a speed visible to the naked eye and turned into Lucci's appearance and landed on the rooftop of the castle in the distance. Law, Kid, Lafitte, Perona, Reg, Shiryu, and others all couldn't help but feel a little shocked. Obviously, the other party should have obtained some powerful devil fruit from Luke. And it is most likely a very rare mythical zone. Thank you very much, Luke. Lucci knelt down on one knee. He suppressed the excitement and joy in his heart. Looking at Luke, his eyes revealed indescribable respect and gratitude. He didn't feel elated because of gaining strength. He knew very well who gave all this. Kaido can become the strongest creature in the sea, land, and air. Of course, it is because of his extraordinary talents and extremely strong body, but this devil fruit is indispensable. Luke was obviously very satisfied with Lucci's attitude, and said with a smile, if nothing else happens, Lucci, your physical fitness will make huge improvements in all directions at a speed visible to the naked eye. Maybe Lucci can't become the strongest creature on land, sea, and air like Kaido. But even if this devil fruit ability cannot be awakened, he will definitely become one of the most resistant to beating in this sea. His strength alone is comparable to those of Vice Admiral. If he spends some time fully adapting to the devil fruit ability he has just acquired, his strength will surely undergo an earth-shaking leap. This kind of improvement is unimaginable by ordinary people. They may not even be able to catch up throughout their life. This is the huge change brought about by the top-level devil fruit. Once Lucci adapts to the human-beast form fighting style, he can easily crush two of his previous selves. I'll give you the chance to become stronger. Luke crossed his arms, stared at him, and said, how far you can go, it depends on you. I look forward to the day when you can become my right-hand man. Don't worry, I won't let you down. Lucci stood up. He responded with a serious look on his face. Powerful devil fruit ability let him regain his former self-confidence again. But he has lost a bit of arrogance and has become more calm. He knows very well that although he has gained powerful devil fruit now, it is not far enough. There is still a long way to go before he reaches the top of the sea. Luke. What about me? Looking at Luke, who was about to leave. Kaku couldn't help but speak and looked at the other party eagerly. Seeing Lucci suddenly acquire such a powerful devil fruit ability, it was inevitable that he couldn't sit still. Don't worry, you won't be late for a good meal. Luke patted him on the shoulder. In his hand, there is indeed a mythical zone fruit. But that devil fruit is not a combat type but more of an auxiliary nature, which is not very suitable for Kaku. In comparison, the snake fruit, model, 8-headed serpent from Kurizumi Orochi, is undoubtedly more suitable for him. And it's easy to get his hands on it. This was already decided by Luke. It's just that the Shadowkin army under his command just found the coordinates of Wano not long ago and he haven't had time to go there yet. As for whether it would offend Kaido or something, Luke wasn't worried, or he didn't care at all. Karina had already reported that the beast's pirates were searching for his whereabouts everywhere, and they were obviously targeting him, or in other words, Robin, an archaeologist who could decipher the historical text. With Kaido's strong and arrogant yet cunning character, sooner or later, they will be enemies, so, let's ask for some interest first. Kaku. He was obviously the one who joined first. In the beginning, who kept saying that Lucci couldn't be trusted. Chapter 186, Admiral Kizaru Luke-sama. Luke had just arrived at the training ground when the people present, including Law, Kid, Wiper, Perona, Brook, Hogback, Bartolomeo, etc., gathered around and looked at Lucci curiously. The transformation of the other party into a dragon just now gave them a little shock. And Kaku and Blueno held their heads high, full of pride. They usually had some conflicts with Law, Kid, Burgess, and others. A while ago, as the representative of the CP9 faction in the Netherworld Pirate, Lucci was abused by Dory and was squeezed by these guys from time to time, making them a little aggrieved. Now, with Lucci's powerful devil fruit ability, he can step forward. Finally, they can breathe a sigh of relief. Luke-sama, 50 miles ahead, there is a fleet returning to the direction of the Marine headquarters. After glancing at Lucci, Lafitte asked Luke, do we need to bypass them? Admiral Kizaru seems to be on board. Wiper added. Kizaru? Luke raised his eyebrows and said lightly, there is no need to bypass them. Things have came to this point. A mere Marine Admiral, is he qualified to make the Netherworld Pirate give way? Even if this sea area is very close to the Marine headquarters, what does it matter? If he doesn't know what's good for him, he doesn't mind teaching Kizaru a lesson. Understood. At this moment, dozens of miles away, on the turbulent sea, a marine fleet consisting of several warships is moving slowly there. Leading it is a top-level warship with a strong momentum. Admiral Kizaru, It is estimated that we will be able to return to the Marine headquarters in 2 hours. A navigator saluted the tall and thin figure in the cloak. Are we almost there? You have worked hard. Kizaru put his hands in his pockets and looked at the blue sea, then he nodded there. He was wearing a yellow striped suit and a Marine justice cloak. He was very tall, about 3 meters tall. But with that unflattering monkey-like dignity, he looked a bit wretched and sloppy. It was really impossible to connect him with such a powerful and respected figure like the Marine Admiral. Huh? At this moment, the lookout on the mast noticed the movement in the distance, and his pupils shrank sharply. He hurriedly looked there with a monocular. That's something bad. Looking at the black spots that were getting bigger and bigger, cold sweat directly broke out on his forehead. He shouted down, "There is an enemy." What's going on? The well-trained Marines below were all tense. They were alert at the first moment and quickly gathered there to prepare for battle. Kizaru, who had just sat down and read the newspaper, looked up, full of doubts. What happened? I don't know what's going on. A huge island and a large number of warships are flying in the air. On the mast, the lookout responded loudly in panic. What? Countless Marines were shocked. Even Kizaru stood up suddenly. Is that the Golden Lion pirates? Looking at the black spot in the sky ahead that was visible to the naked eye and was getting bigger, his pupil shrank sharply. Kizaru looked very serious and ordered the adjutant beside him, "Send a message to the headquarters immediately. The whereabouts of Golden Lion pirates have been found." Understood. The adjutant hurriedly ran to the liaison room. This is really troublesome. Kizaru frowned. He twisted his mouth, somewhat helpless. After completing the task of inspecting the major Marine branch bases on behalf of the Marine headquarters, he was preparing to return home in a good mood. He heard that all the prisoners in the underwater prison were taken away quietly, and even several scientists, including Dr. Vegapunk, the world's #1 scientist from the Marine Science Unit, were kidnapped. The world government was frantically looking for the Golden Lion pirates' whereabouts. Unexpectedly, he encountered it at the sea. In this case, it is impossible to pretend that he doesn't see anything. If that happens, Fleet Admiral Sengoku will not forgive him. What? Marine headquarters, Maniford. In the Fleet Admiral's office, Sengoku, who was busy with official business, received the report and was shocked, making him stand up suddenly. Kizaru encountered the Golden Lion pirates? Yes, Fleet Admiral Sengoku, this is the information just sent back by the fleet where Kizaru is. Branyu responded. Did we finally found that guy? Sengoku looked cold, he clenched his fists tightly, and ordered loudly, let Kizaru restrain Golden Lion at all costs, don't let them run away. Immediately send Aokiji to lead the fleet to support. Branyu stood at attention and saluted. Let Garp go, too. For the sake of insurance, Sengoku thought it was better to be cautious. After all, Golden Lion emptied the entire underwater prison. If he reached an alliance agreement with those powerful guys, it would be troublesome. That. Fleet Admiral Sengoku, I heard that Vice Admiral Garp left the Marine headquarters early in the morning on a warship because he couldn't stay idle. Branyu reported carefully with sweat on his forehead. What? Hearing this, Sengoku's face darkened, that bastard. Just at this time. He didn't expect that Garp would run away at this time. Without further delay, let Aokiji rush over first, and contact Garp immediately and ask him to turn around. Understood. Before Branyu left the office, Sengoku, who was a little angry that the Garp had left his post without permission, continued to shout fiercely, tell that bastard Garp that if he lets Golden Lion run away, all his vacations next year will be cancelled. Ah. Yes. Chapter 187, Beaten and Stunned Crash. On the sea, the Marine fleet moved forward slowly. Looking at the pirate fleet coming across the sky in the distance and the giant ship at the head. Recognizing the identity of the giant ship, Kizaru's eyes couldn't but narrow. That's what's going on? Isn't that Moria's ship, the thriller bark? Shouldn't it be Shiki's Golden Lion pirates? Did Gecko Moria, one of the 7 warlords of the sea, get killed? Admiral Kizaru, their fleet flag doesn't belong to the Golden Lion pirate but to the flag of the Netherworld pirate. The lookout loudly reported there. He discovered that the flags on the robbed warships had already changed. And it's not the pirate flag of the Golden Lion pirates, it's the flag of the Netherworld pirate. Even the graffiti on the outside has turned black and gray. It looked full of oppression. What? Kizaru's expression was full of doubts, he frowned and his face became solemn. You should immediately turn around and report to the headquarters. I will go check the situation. Sacred Yata mirror. His words have not yet finished, but a dazzling light mirror condensed out. Whoosh! Kizaru's entire body turned into light in an instant and disappeared along the passage of light. At this moment, Kizaru had already appeared in front of the thriller bark and overlooked the entire thriller bark and the surrounding fleets. This is So scary. Looking at the astonishing number of beasts and zombies, as well as the huge and eye-catching giant, Kizaru couldn't help but take a deep breath. The powerful aura on the thriller bark made him even feel tense. Hey, Marine. It's not a good habit to show up uninvited. Under Kizaru's surprised gaze, a figure bathed in lightning light kicked toward him swiftly. Whoosh! Wiper's attack failed. The next moment, light gathered into a human shape. Speed is weight. Have you ever been kicked by the speed of light? Wiper's hair stood on end as he reacted. Buzz. He didn't hesitate and turned into lightning swiftly. Boom. As expected, the fierce and unparalleled light speed kick broke through the air in an instant. But Kizaru's attack failed in the end, and Wiper dodged his attack. Logia, rumble fruit user? Seeing Wiper, who was able to narrowly avoid his own light speed kick in an instant and appear dozens of meters away in the blink of an eye, with lightning all over his body, Kizaru was filled with surprise. It's so scary, netherworld pirates. Admiral Kizaru? Shiryu flies by while holding the famous sword, Ryu, and is full of fighting spirit. Kai. A frightening flying slash struck hard. In an instant, Kizaru's entire body turned into a shower of light. Letting the gleaming flying slash go through his body. Ah, aren't you the head jailer of Impel Down, Shiryu? Kizaru was a little shocked as he looked at Shiryu, who suddenly rushed up with murderous intent. The shining right foot is as fast as lightning as he kicks him down violently. Sorry, not anymore. Shiryu smiled ferociously. In response to Kizaru's kick, the blade struck out fiercely. King. Sparks sputter. A dazzling laser beam shot out. The hair on Shiryu's hair stood up, and he subconsciously turned his head to dodge. Mono Morakamo sword. Immediately afterward, the light became intense. Kizaru pulled with both hands, and a dazzling lightsaber condensed out. At this moment, his eyes under the brown sunglasses were full of surprise. Can you tell me what is going on? Head jailer Shiryu. No doubt, the head jailer of Impel Down may have teamed up with Golden Lion or Gecko Moria. But all this is really confusing, and Kizaru is really becoming more confused. Hey, wouldn't it be interesting to find the answer yourself? Shiryu was full of fun. Without showing any signs of weakness, he brandished his sword and collided with the incoming lightsaber. Buzz. At this moment, Wiper was just about to rush forward. But his shoulders were directly held down. Luke-sama. Wiper was stunned. Looking at the side in surprise, he don't know when there were more thin and undetectable shadow strings appearing one after another. Go down. The tall figure with demonic shadow wings behind it said lightly, your half-hearted armament hockey can't threaten him yet. Understood. Wiper also knew that there was a huge gap in strength between himself and Admiral. There was no unwillingness, and his whole body turned into lightning and disappeared in midair. Boom. At the same time, a fiery flying slash struck out. The laser beam that was about to hit the thriller bark was scattered. A tall figure ran in the air. Whoosh. Shiki is very fast and his observation hockey locked onto Kizaru's figure. Holding Hidden Sound Village tightly in his right hand, he suddenly slashes down, slicing wave. The air is torn apart in an instant. A huge blazing flying slash struck like lightning. Golden Lion? Looking at the figure rushing up, Kizaru's pupils tightened. The moment the dazzling flying slash struck, his whole body turned into a light as he violently retreated. He narrowly avoided the incoming attack. There was a flash of golden light. Almost at the moment, Kizaru had just condensed into human form, his hair suddenly stood up. A terrifying figure, as fast as lightning, appeared in front of him instantly. Crack. Bang. The violent fists were intertwined with black and red lightning, hitting him hard on the body. Boom. Arg. He was caught off guard and unable to dodge. In an instant, the unimaginable impact caused him to fly out like a cannonball and hit the sea below while vomiting blood. Kizaru, who was flying upside down, had a distorted face while looking at the terrifying young figure wrapped around by powerful armament hockey in disbelief. Obask Luke? Chapter 188, Multiple Shadow Clone. Boom. A loud explosion broke through the air. Kizaru vomited blood and flew towards the sea below at an astonishing speed without losing momentum. Cough. That's too much. The severe pain that hit him all the time made Kizaru, who had not been injured for a long time, grit his teeth. Luke, Shiki, Moria, Shiryu. What is going on? He looked at the sky and did not stop. Instead, his speed did not slow down and he continued to fly towards the islands in the distance with his eyes filled with surprise and uncertainty. The dots in his heart are getting bigger and bigger. Yaskani Sacred Jewel. Noticing that he was about to fall onto the sea, Kizaru's eyes narrowed. Whoosh. The golden light shone, and his whole body fired a torrent of deadly light bombs. It continuously tore apart the air and violently attacked the thriller bark above. Moreover, the light bombs transformed into Kizaru's appearance at a speed visible to the naked eye. They all hold lightsabers in hand and attack Luke and others. A clone? Hey, you are indeed a Marine Admiral. Looking at the shocking number of clones who came up to attack them. Wiper, Golden Lion, sure you, and others' pupils couldn't help but shrink. You really don't learn a lesson. The shores of the Thriller bark. Standing there with his arms folded, Luke looked at Kizaru, who rushed forward unwillingly, using the ability of Glint Glint Fruit to create a large number of light clones. He seemed to have no intention of retreating. Luke showed a sneer and snapped his fingers. There is no point in comparing numbers in front of me. Multiple shadow clone. Boom. High in the air, Luke's figure, which had blasted Kizaru down earlier, exploded directly. Whoosh. Groups of strange black shadow substances splashed out there. Under everyone's gaze, they expand and change at a speed visible to the naked eye. Tall figures appeared there, one after another. Moreover, behind them, there is a pair of demon wings condensed. Only then did everyone realize that the one who suddenly appeared in the sky and knocked away Admiral Kizaru with one punch was not Luke himself at all, but just his clone. Hiss. So many Luke-sama. TSK, it's incredible. Can the ability of the Shadow Fruit be able to do such a thing? As expected of Luke-sama. On the training ground, Law, Kid, Nami, Nojiko, Perona, Raj, Brooke, Desire, Bartolomeo, and others all raised their heads there and stared blankly at the dozens or hundreds of Luke in the sky that were exactly the same as the original body and completely unrecognizable. Some of them couldn't believe it and were amazed. Obviously, Luke has developed the ability of the Shadow Fruit to an unimaginable level. Lots of shadow clones fly down without any sign of weakness and attack Kizaru, who rushes up. Clone? Kizaru's pupils shrank, a little surprised. But without hesitation, he let those light clones continue attacking. The sound of metal clashing together was extremely deafening. Like the opposition between light and darkness, the two parties were fighting there. Like a defenseless child, Kizaru's light clones were all ruthlessly destroyed. Obviously, it lies in the control of ability. But Luke is undoubtedly stronger. What a terrible guy. Dazzling lights gathered in the sky. Kizaru's hands are intertwined, focusing on the dazzling light mirror, Yaskani's sacred jewel. In an instant, densely packed light bullets continuously blast toward these shadow clones. However, those shadow clones that were killed directly turned into a large number of shadow strings. The shadow strings shot out in all directions, covering the entire sky. This is Shadow Line? Witnessing this scene, Kizaru's eyes were filled with uncertainty. As if thinking of something, his pupil couldn't help but shrink. Could it be? But the next moment, the hair on his whole body stood up. A terrifying figure rushed over like lightning. Hell thrust. The dark and sharp palm knife, intertwined with dazzling lightning, was also entangled by the powerful armament hockey. He suddenly struck behind Kizaru, with murderous intent running through him. Kizaru's expression couldn't help but change in shock, and his pupils suddenly dilated. In the next second, the golden light and the shadow constantly flashed in the sky. It's so fast that the onlookers can't see it at all. The light rain danced, accompanied by blood. The dazzling figures appeared dozens of meters away in an instant, widening the distance. I'm careless, you can actually teleport through these strings. Kizaru looked at Luke with a stern look while covering his bloody shoulder. For the first time, he met someone faster than himself. The opponent actually moved instantly through those shadow strings, completely suppressing the speed that he was proud of. In that short moment, Kizaru had already dodged several times. In the end, he still does not completely avoid it and is directly injured by Luke. Do you have a clone whose combat power is almost the same as the original body? His expression was solemn as never before. His eyes were fixed on the tall figure in front of him. Then he looked at the figure in Thriller bark below, which was exactly the same as the person in front of him. At this moment, that young figure who stood there watching indifferently without taking any action from beginning to end, asked Luke. Did you get Moria's devil fruit? Looking at Kizaru's face full of disbelief, Luke showed a sneer. It seems that Zephyr, the chief instructor of Marine Academy, has made a mistake in his evaluation of you, Kizaru. You don't just know how to rely on devil fruit ability, your observation hockeys has also reached quite astonishing heights. Whoosh. The next moment, Kizaru felt his eyes blur. On the left, a tall figure appeared again while exuding a terrifying aura. Die. No nonsense. He was not prepared to give Kizaru, the Marine Admiral, a chance to breathe. One to the left and one to the right, two extremely terrifying figures were bathed in strong lightning. Two extremely terrifying fists blasted over at the same time without mercy. Whoosh. At this moment, facing a fatally intense crisis, Kizaru's hair stood on end, and his pupils dilated. Light explosion. Chapter 189, Fleeing Away. Boom. The sea boils, and the waves turn rough. High in the sky, the gusts of wind rage fiercely, making it difficult to open one's eyes. On the giant ship, the nearby coast was directly affected by the shocking aftermath, causing part of it to collapse. Law, Kidd, Brooke, Burgess, and others who were too close would have been injured if Bartolomeo hadn't immediately used the ability of the Parimsha, barrier fruit to protect them. Even the warships surrounding the thriller bark, which had been painted black and gray and hung the flag of the Netherworld pirate, were all almost overturned by the powerful shock wave. Self-destruction? In the sky, dark shadows surged. Luke, who was unscathed, had sharp eyes. Does Glint fruit still have such ability? He originally wanted to see if he could keep Kizaru. He didn't expect that the other party would use this method to avoid his ultimate attack. If his attack had just landed just now, Kizaru's chest would have been penetrated, and his internal organs would have been destroyed directly. Buzz. There was a flash of lightning. Wiper's figure appeared in front of Luke and said, "Luke-sama, he has run away. His breath is several kilometers away." What a slippery guy. Did he run away decisively when the situation was bad? He looked around and looked at the sea in the distance. In the sky, there was a faint golden light, which disappeared in a flash. Luke shrugged. "Forget it, let sure you take over those warships and continue heading to the New World." Glancing at the small fleet that was already drifting away and about to leave the site, he had no intention of letting these Marines go. For the Netherworld pirates, who have just begun to enter the New World and urgently need to expand the size of their fleet, mosquitoes are still meat, no matter how small they are. Since the Marines took the initiative to provoke him, they would have to pay the price. It's really awesome. The Marine Admiral is running away. I'm afraid no one in this sea can face the siege of Luke-sama and his shadow clone at the same time, right? Nami, Robin, Kidd, Lafitte, Van Auger, Hogback, and others could not help but marvel. If they hadn't seen it with their own eyes, who would have believed that the Marine Admiral, who represented the highest combat power of the Marine headquarters, would run away from Luke and not dare to continue fighting? Enemy attack. These guys. How did it come out? Damn it, completely unkillable. Damn, what kind of monsters are these? Ah. Now, on the distant sea. On several warships of different sizes, there were constant sounds of fighting, gunfire, and screams. Marines screamed and fell into a pool of blood one after another. In front of them, there was a dark figure with a dark body and a ferocious face, like a demon, rapidly clearing out the group of Marines on the warship. Crash. At the same time, on the undulating sea in the distance, a not very wide ice path appeared there, and a cyan figure was running wildly across the sea at an astonishing speed. Whoosh. At this time, a golden light flashed. Aokiji, who was speeding up, suddenly stopped in his steps. Looking at the visitor, his pupils shrank sharply. Kizaru. At this moment, Kizaru was covered in blood, his face was a little pale, and he was extremely weak. In that depressed and embarrassed look, where is the high-spiritedness of the past? When has this Marine Admiral, who has unparalleled speed, ever seen such an embarrassing scene? Ahem, Aokiji, you're late. Kizaru landed on the ice track. Holding his bloody right shoulder, he took a deep breath and smiled bitterly. If nothing else happens, my fleet should have been completely wiped out. He shouldn't have been in such a mess and shouldn't have been hit hard so easily. At first, he didn't understand Obaskluk's abilities and was a little too careless. Especially, facing the attack from the opponent and the clone, if he hadn't relied on self-destruction to evacuate decisively. He is afraid he would have been killed by that terrible monster. What on earth is going on? Looking at Kizaru's miserable look, Aokiji looked solemn and a little confused. With your devil fruit ability, relying on the speed of light to move, if you just want to drag the target, who can hurt you like this? Obaskluk. After receiving a merciless punch from Luke, Kizaru had several broken ribs. He was still frightened and said quietly, that monster is beyond our imagination. He is not a Parimsha, gum fruit user, but the Parimsha, shadow fruit user. He got Moria's devil fruit ability and took everything from that guy. He has already controlled the thriller bark. What? Hearing those words, Aokiji was shocked. Obaskluk's devil fruit is the shadow fruit? Bolo at this time, the den mushi in Aokiji's pocket suddenly rang rapidly. Aokiji, have you arrived? He just got through the den mushi and didn't wait for him to speak. Sengoku's anxious voice came from the den mushi. I just received a report that part of Kizaru's Vivre card has been burned. I'm afraid the situation is not good. Haven't you arrived yet? Mr. Sengoku, I'm fine. Kizaru took the call and said helplessly, I'm very sorry, I couldn't hold them back. Kizaru? Just be fine. The other end of the den mushi. Sengoku, who was far away at Marine headquarters, couldn't help but breathe a sigh of relief. At the same time, he asked loudly, what is going on? Didn't you just need to rely on Glint Glint Fruit's ability to hold them back? Even if Shiki's strength hasn't declined over the years, he won't be able to get you injured so easily, right? Chapter 190, Bold Guess What? In other words, you suspect that Hobaskluk has already killed Gecko Moria and gained his Devil Fruit ability? Marine Headquarters, Marine Hospital in Manaford, in a luxurious intensive care unit. Kizaru was lying on the hospital bed with medical bandages all over his body. Listening to Kizaru's detailed report, Sengoku, Aokiji, and Tsuru, who were gathered here, all had drastic changes of expression. Although it's a bit unbelievable, this is the case. Leaning on the hospital bed, Kizaru, who was a little weak, said in a deep voice, however, if he really eats the shadow fruit, then his Devil Fruit ability development has obviously far surpassed that guy, Moria, and maybe he has already awakened it. He wasn't 100% sure either. Is Hobaskluk a shadow fruit user? Just judging from the situation of fighting with the clone at that time, he thinks it is very similar. If Hobaskluk is the mastermind behind the Netherworld pirate, then the abnormal behavior of the thriller bark all the time makes perfect sense. Vice Admiral Tsuru was a little confused. But her face was solemn as never before, and if you think about it carefully, the ability to stretch the body 100 degrees is indeed very similar to Moria's Shadow Revolution. It wouldn't be surprising if he transformed Moria's body into a zombie. As the Chief Staff Officer of Marine Headquarters, she naturally has some knowledge of the relevant information about the 7 warlords of the sea and even their Devil Fruit ability. According to the Devil Fruit Encyclopedia, the ability of the Shadow Fruit can even control and change the shape of the shadow, thereby changing the shape of the entity. While trying to hide his own Devil Fruit ability, he continued to borrow Gecko Moria, the warlord of the sea's identity. In this way, he confuses Marine and disguises himself as the Gum Fruit user. That makes sense. However, Vice Admiral Garp once said that Hobaskluk can manipulate lightning, fire, and even become invisible. It is impossible to have multiple Devil Fruit abilities, right? Aokiji scratched his head and said with some confusion. As we all know, a person can only eat one Devil Fruit and have one ability. Anyone who is too greedy will eventually pay the price for their greed and die miserably. No one can possess 2 or more Devil Fruit abilities. This is generally accepted knowledge of the sea. What if it's not Devil Fruit's ability, but technological means? Vice Admiral Tsuru, who was frowning in deep thought, suddenly spoke. What? Technological means? Sengoku, Kizaru, and Aokiji couldn't help but look at Vice Admiral Tsuru in astonishment. Such a bold guess is a bit far-fetched, right? Although I don't know exactly what happened, according to Marine's information, Queen, a member of the Beast's pirates, once demonstrated a similar ability to Hobaskluk. Vice Admiral Tsuru said directly. In addition, in the North Blue, the members of the Vinsmoke family also have similar powers and even have steel-hard exoskeletons. It is said that they are lineage factors warrior. And according to the investigation, both Vinsmoke Judge and Queen were once members of the Mads team when they were young. Since Garp last fought against Luke, she has compiled relevant information. She specifically investigated and finally found that the abilities displayed by Hobaskluk were very similar to the technological powers possessed by Queen or the children of the Vinsmoke family. Combining the information Kizaru brought back this time and thinking of Dr. Vegapunk being kidnapped, there is no doubt that the culprit is also Hobaskluk. Vice Admiral Tsuru had to wonder whether the other party was fully aware of the power of technology. Only then would he invade Punk Hazard directly to get the world's #1 genius scientist. Mads? It seems a bit familiar. That overseas illegal research institute that Vegapunk formed when he was young? Kizaru, Aokiji, and Sengoku were surprised. Obviously, they are no strangers to the Mads and have some impressions. Another thing that is also very suspicious is that Garp once mentioned that Hobaskluk's body is very weird, as tough as steel. Vice Admiral Tsuru said in a deep voice, when he was in CP, although Hobaskluk was incredibly talented, he definitely did not have an invulnerable body. Otherwise, the world government would have discovered it. Originally, I thought it might be because of special Devil Fruit ability that gave him a steel-like physique. But combined with the information from Kizaru, if Hobaskluk is really a shadow fruit user. After a pause, Vice Admiral Tsuru, who has rich experience, broad thinking, and extraordinary wisdom, said firmly, then I have reason to suspect that his strength has improved by leaps and bounds in a short period of time, and he has grown so fast, most likely because of the help of the power of technology that transforms him into lineage factors warrior. What? Transformed by lineage factors? Listening to Vice Admiral Tsuru's analysis, Kizaru, Aokiji, and Sengoku's pupils couldn't help but shrink, and they felt a little shocked. They never expected that Vice Admiral Tsuru would come to such a conclusion. It's really hard to believe. Tsuru, if you say that, it's not impossible. Sengoku's face became serious. He clenched his fists tightly, full of fear. If they followed Tsuru's train of thought, the more they think about it, the more likely it is. After all, it is a bit too amazing that Luke has such exaggerated strength at such an age. Especially when he first rebelled against the world government, his strength was clearly far from that level. At most, it was at the level of an ordinary elite vice admiral. However, in just a few months, his strength has continued to leap forward at a jaw-dropping speed. No matter how talented he is, logically speaking, it is impossible to grow so fast. Anyway, that brat is really outrageous. Chapter 191, Oblivion Island? Historical text? By the way, Golden Lion is also on the thriller bark. But his behavior is a little abnormal. Not only did he recover his legs, but the rudder on his head was also removed. Moreover, he actually used moonwalk to fly instead of using his float fruit ability. In the VIP intensive care unit of the Marine Hospital, Kizaru thought of something. He added with some doubt, instead, it was that traitor, Shiryu, who looked like the one that had the float fruit. In addition, there is a Logia rumble fruit user under Luke's command. I have a bad feeling. Speaking of this, he swallowed his saliva. He made a bold guess, with the strength shown by Luke, Golden Lion, who lost his legs, had a rudder on his head, and was old. It would not be surprising if he was killed. What? Hearing this, it was not just Admiral Aokiji next to him who was shocked and speechless. Sengoku and Vice Admiral Tsuru, who were present, had a drastic change of expression and broke out in cold sweat. Could it be? Mr. Sengoku, I'm afraid we have to be fully prepared. Kizaru's face was solemn, and he said bluntly, if I'm not mistaken, Obaskluk can not only make corpses into zombies with considerable combat power, but he may also be able to take away the devil fruit ability of others in some way. Hiss, for a moment, whether it was the Fleet Admiral of Sengoku, Admiral Aokiji, or Vice Admiral Tsuru. In their hearts, they all felt a chill that penetrated their bones. Let's not talk about whether he really has a way to plunder the devil fruit ability. Vice Admiral Tsuru's face was more solemn than ever before, and she said in a deep voice, there is no doubt that Obaskluk's own strength is already comparable to those monsters in New World. Kizaru just said that he can even summon a clone with the same strength as the main body. Although it is not clear how long such a clone can last. But forgive me for being frank, any admiral who faces him alone will probably be in danger. Looking at Kizaru, who is a little weak and in a miserable state on the bed. Even strong men like Sengoku and Admiral Aokiji can't help but fall silent. Kizaru relies on the glint fruit to successfully escape. If it were someone else, they are afraid it would be hard to predict their life and death situation. Moreover, if Obaskluk is really the shadow fruit user, then the purpose of emptying the underwater prison, in addition to possibly recruiting some of the strong men, I'm afraid the main reason is for the shadows of those strong men. Vice Admiral Tsuru looked solemn and said in a deep voice, if nothing unexpected happens, he should want to use those shadows and the bodies of the strong men to create an unkillable and powerful zombie army. Zombie army? Listening to Vice Admiral Tsuru's analysis, everyone present couldn't help but have a drastic change of expression. According to what Kizaru just said, if Shiki's devil fruit ability has really been taken away and his body has been made into a zombie, then the power of the zombie army should not be underestimated. If that guy uses the shadows of those strong men as materials for making zombies. For a moment, even Sengoku, the Fleet Admiral, felt his scalp a little numb. The Impel Down has imprisoned many powerful guys through the years, and there are many bodies that have not been disposed of after death. I think this is also the reason why he no longer hides and appears in a big way. The current netherworld pirate no longer needs the identity of the warlord of the sea. Vice Admiral Tsuru shrugged and said faintly, obviously, this ambitious young monster who cannot be guessed by the common sense has fully possessed the ability to challenge those monsters in the new world. Whether it is their strength or the forces under their command. We can no longer look at Obaskluk with the same eyes as before. Baloo. Baloo suddenly, the Den Mushi suddenly rings rapidly. The three people present, Aokiji, Kizaru, and Tsuru, subconsciously looked in the direction where the sound came from. Moshi, I am Sengoku. Sengoku answered the Den Mushi solemnly. Fleet Admiral Sengoku, there was news from Mary Jo Eyes just now that the Netherworld pirate fleet has soared over the Red Line. Damn. Are those guys really going to enter the New World? Sengoku's face darkened. Kizaru, Tsuru, and Aokiji could not help but look solemn. Once the Netherworld pirate really invades the New World, there will definitely be a big fuss. Now, there is probably going to be a huge storm over in the New World. Maybe the New World, which the Marines have finally managed to suppress, and the situation is gradually becoming stable, will experience unpredictable turmoil again. Also, Fleet Admiral Sengoku. The Dendenmushi imitated the outline of Sengoku's adjutant and said while sweating profusely, "The world government is very angry and strictly orders us, Marine, to come up with a plan as soon as possible to solve Obaskluk." Sengoku's face turned dark. He clenched his fists tightly, feeling a little aggrieved. Those big bosses just stand and talk without pain, and they are urging him every day, putting pressure on him, the fleet admiral, at every turn. Doesn't he want to eliminate the Netherworld pirate as soon as possible, too? The problem is the power that the Netherworld pirates are showing now. He is afraid it's almost comparable to the Beast's pirates, Big Mom pirates, and other powerful factions that dominate the New World. Not to mention that they also possess the float fruit, which allows them to move freely in the sky just like the Golden Lion pirate in the past. With Marine's current strength, can it really defeat the Netherworld pirate by forming a large fleet to go deep into the New World to encircle and suppress them? If it were that easy, all the big pirates in the New World would have been wiped out long ago. At dusk, far in the first half of New World, the island of Oblivion. A huge ship lies high in the sky near the sea. There are also a large number of warships surrounding it. It was indescribably shocking. "Luke, is this the place you mentioned?" In a deserted ancient ruins, Luke came here with Robin and a few people, including Reiju, Nami, Nojiko, and Perona, who wanted to join in the fun. He held up a searchlight to illuminate the ruins, which seemed a bit eerie because it was already evening. "Well, the Shadowkins I sent out found a poneglyph here, so I brought you over to take a look," Luke said with a smile after passing through an abandoned ancient building. Not so long ago, Shadowkin army visited this island to look for devil fruit. Then, they accidentally stumbled into these ancient ruins and discovered the whereabouts of the poneglyph. Because they just crossed the red line and came to New World, which is not far away. And it's already dark, considering New World's harsh and unpredictable climate. Luke directly asked Shiryu to use the float fruit's ability to control the thriller bark and fleet to fly in the island of Oblivion's direction. Then, he took Robin and the other girls with him to explore these ancient ruins. Well, here. Not long after, in a dark ancient building, a poneglyph full of traces of time and covered with moss appeared in front of several people. Poneglyph. Robin is full of surprises. She came forward immediately and couldn't wait to read. Chapter 192, Huge Bounty Luke-sama. At the same time, a Shadowkin emerged from the shadows. He presented a dark purple apple-shaped fruit with strange patterns. "This is the devil fruit I just found from the deep underground ruins." "Did you find another devil fruit?" Nami, Reiju, Khalifa, and the other girls who came to join in the fun were all a little surprised. TSK, you're really lucky." Luke smiled as he took the dark purple fruit. He naturally recognized this devil fruit at first glance. It's the bat fruit, model, vampire. And he was not particularly surprised to be able to find this devil fruit here. Because as early as when the Shadowkin army discovered this island, Luke had already ordered them to search for this devil fruit. The poneglyphs that Robin just read were just a side dish. "Luke-sama, what is this devil fruit?" Nami, who was standing by, was full of curiosity. Not only her but also Reiju, Nojiko, and Khalifa, who were standing beside her, were no exception. "Is that the bat fruit, model, vampire?" Robin, who had just finished reading the poneglyphs, looked a little surprised and a little regretful. Looking at the devil fruit, she was a little surprised. "You actually found this devil fruit?" Having seen the devil fruit encyclopedias, she naturally knew what this devil fruit was. "Huh? Mythical zone? Bat fruit, model, vampire? In other words, if you eat it, you can transform into the legendary vampire?" Hearing this, the girls were surprised. They never thought that this fruit was a rare mythical zone. And it was a vampire model. Robin smiled and said, "It is said that after eating it, you can turn into a legendary vampire and stay young forever by sucking blood so that people will stay young forever and will not age. It is said that it has the power to make people immortal, but whether it is true or not is unclear. This is what is recorded in the Devil Fruit Encyclopedia. However, whether it can really let the user achieve immortality has not been confirmed." Eternal youth? Hearing this, Nami, Reiju, and other women were all dumbfounded. The power to stay young forever, obviously, no woman can resist such temptation. Unfortunately, they are all already devil fruit users. Even Reiju, the eldest daughter of the Vinsmoke family, was given the dog fruit, monster raccoon model by Luke not long ago. Just after entering the new world, we have such a harvest. This is a good sign. Luke couldn't help but smile as Nami and the other girls took the devil fruit and looked at it. Regardless of whether this devil fruit can make people immortal, it is undeniable that it is powerful. The next day, early in the morning, the sky, which was originally gloomy and windy, suddenly cleared up. Luke completed several rounds of high-intensity training with Robin early in the morning, guiding her to develop flower fruits ability in depth. It's really hard to find this confident sister who works very hard and wants to keep up with the rhythm. A refreshed Luke came to the training ground. No order from Luke was needed. Early in the morning, Shiryu has already activated the float fruit ability. Leading the fleet in the air, under the guidance of Nami, Lafitte, and the kidnapped weather scientists, they perfectly avoided the huge storm and started heading towards Dressrosa. What's so exciting? Seeing people from the Netherworld pirate gathered in small groups discussing something, Luke asked with a smile. Law looked at several new bounties that had dropped from the World Economy News Agency he had just subscribed to and said to Luke with a smile, the news that the Netherworld pirate invaded the Impel Down has been reported. The world government has released a new bounty for you, Captain. Even Shiryu has won. Now, I'm afraid the entire sea has been shocked. He could imagine, once the news spreads that the Impel Down has been invaded, what a big sensation will it cause. The world's largest prison that houses tens of thousands of extremely vicious and lawless villains. For many years, no one has ever been able to successfully escape from the so-called Iron Wall. Even the news of the Golden Lion jailbreak was suppressed. Unknown to the outside world. To this day, countless people still believe in the myth that Impel Down is unbreakable and cannot be broken. But this time, the legend that the underwater prison is an iron-walled prison will undoubtedly be completely shattered. In particular, Luke did not just rob a prison and rescue one or two prisoners. Instead, the entire Impel Down was raided cleanly. Hiss, Luke-sama, now the world government and Marine will definitely lose reputation. Dr. Hogback smiled strangely and said, those guys are probably going crazy. Oh? Luke raised his eyebrows. The corners of his mouth rose as if he wasn't surprised. Because he deliberately asked Gil Tesoro to contact the big news morgans of the World Economy News Agency to expose the news. How could the world government suppress the news so easily? After all, the Netherworld pirates are about to enter the New World with great fanfare and compete with those big pirates. They need to make a name for themselves. Luke-sama, this time, you have been offered a bounty of 2.2 billion belly. Desire ran over with Luke's bounty and said happily. The eyes that looked at Luke were filled with indescribable enthusiasm and admiration. 2.2 billion? Luke chuckled. This amount is not small. Lafitte, on the side, smiled and said, this guy, Shiryu, has also been offered a bounty of 550 million belly. Hey, just be so-so. Shiryu bit his cigar and smiled. He was not particularly satisfied with such a reward. After all, in terms of strength alone, although he dares not say that he can be compared with monsters like Big Mom and Kaido. But he thinks that he is no worse than pirates like Katakuri and King. The bounties for these guys are more than 1 billion belly. However, considering that this was the first time a bounty was placed on his head, it was clear that Marine still recognized his ability as the Impel Down head jailer. 550 million belly? Luke nodded. If he guessed correctly. Marine probably guessed that Shiryu became the new float fruit user. That's why they pay so much attention to him. Chapter 193, The Sea Shakes. The underwater prison was invaded, the disappearance of the prisoners and the invasion at Impel Down, the world's largest prison? The broken iron walls, unprecedented. The man who caused trouble in 2 of the 3 major agencies of the world government, big event. Obaskluk invades the Impel Down, the head jailer, Shiryu rebels and surrenders to the enemy, warlords of the sea, Gecko Moria has long been defeated. The boss behind the Netherworld pirates, Black Prison, Obaskluk, a new legend is about to be born. Obaskluk leads the Netherworld pirates to officially enter the new world, Super Rising Star Pirate, the captain of the Netherworld pirates, a man with a bounty of 2.2 billion. Today, countless news outlets take brand new newspapers and fly to all parts of the world. The sea and the world shook, countless people, as well as major trends. Looking at the headlines in the newspaper, they were all shocked and stunned. The world's largest prison, the legend of its impregnable iron walls, has been shattered. Moreover, it was raided completely. You know, there are thousands of extremely vicious and lawless villains imprisoned inside. If these guys all come out to cause trouble, they are afraid that the sea will once again fall into unprecedented chaos and turmoil. Just thinking about it makes their head hurt. Hey, is it true? Gulu. Are you kidding me? Obaskluk emptied Impel Down and brought out all the prisoners. It can't be wrong. Obaskluk's bounty has been raised to 2.2 billion belly again. Are you kidding me? Impel Down, the world's largest prison, and the myth of the Iron Wall has been broken like this? Oh my god. I heard that the people locked up inside are all extremely vicious and lawless guys. Is he trying to conquer the villains in Impel Down? Damn it, what are those guys from Marine and World Government doing? The Impel Down has been emptied by Obaskluk. Didn't those Marines notice it? I didn't expect that Gecko Maria, one of the 7 warlords of the sea, would have been killed long ago. The boss behind the scenes of the Netherworld Pirates has actually been Obaskluk himself from beginning to end, and has he not really come to light until now? This is just god unbelievable. Where's this world headed? The sea was in an uproar, and countless people at the bottom couldn't help but panic. Thinking that thousands of prisoners who burned, killed, looted, and committed all kinds of evil were all taken away from the world's largest prison, and they might come out to do evil again in the future, they were full of worries about the future. Even those forces, large and small, were shocked. At the same time, they also felt the other party's terrifying enthusiasm. They never expected that Obaskluk would be so courageous. Not only did he dare to invade Impel Down directly, but he also emptied it and took away all the prisoners. It's really unbelievable. TSK, incredible. Has he emptied the world's largest prison? To actually take away all the prisoners, he's too brave. You know there are quite dangerous guys inside. It turned out that Gecko Maria, a warlord of the sea, had already been killed quietly, and the Netherworld Pirates control it behind the scenes. First it was an Ice lobby, and now it's Impel Down. He caused a scene in 2 of the 3 major agencies under the world government. Do you think the top brass of world government are going crazy right now? This man has a lot of ambitions. In the second half of New World, in a certain sea area, aboard the Moby Dick, the captains of the Whitebeard pirates were all shocked. Even Whitebeard, the strongest man in the world, was a little shocked when he looked at the newspaper that had just been delivered. Unexpectedly, the world's largest prison was suddenly invaded, and those guys from the Marine and world government were completely unaware and failed to stop it. Gula-la-la. What an ambitious brat. Staring at the young figure on the latest bounty, Whitebeard couldn't help baring his teeth and chuckled. However, those unruly guys are not so easy to obey. He didn't think that Obaskluk could subdue those unbridled and lawless prisoners. After all, there were several monsters imprisoned there that even Whitebeard could not despise. Those guys were as irritable as their strength. If they could easily surrender and be willing to be inferior to others, that would be a miracle. Wano, Onigashima. The headquarters of Beast's Pirates. In the huge skeleton building, in the luxuriously decorated attic, a figure like a prehistoric beast, bold and grandiose, sat there. Below, there were several desks, and several figures of different shapes were sitting there. A tall blonde beauty wearing a kimono, who looked like a little giant, was smiling and sitting aside, playing the shamisen to cheer everyone up. It was the governor of Beast's Pirates, Kaido of the Beasts, and several cadres of Beast's Pirates. Governor Kaido, it's been a long time since I drank with you. Sasaki, one of the 6 Tobirapo, stood up with a bloated body and a big belly. Holding the wine glass, he smiled and said to Kaido, I toast you a glass, Captain. Okay, cheers. Kaido was full of smiles and did not refuse. Holding the huge wine bowl, he gulped and drank it happily. Fuhihi. A tall figure with wings on his back came hurriedly. He was wearing a black warden uniform, black gloves, and a tightly fitted mask on his head that made his face could not be seen. His 6-meter-tall height gave people a great sense of oppression. Oh, King, you came just in time. Come over and have a few drinks. Looking at King, Kaido said with a smile. Obaskluk you are looking for has appeared. King said in a deep voice, however, the noise he made this time was a bit exaggerated. As he said that, he spread out a newspaper and gestured to Kaido. Black prison, Obaskluk? Is it that guy again? Ah, what did that handsome boy do again? Sasaki, who's who, Black Maria, and others beside him were all surprised. They looked over subconsciously. The world's largest prison, Impel Down, which is known as an iron wall, was successfully invaded by him, and all the prisoners inside were taken in. What? Invaded Impel Down? Took away all the prisoners inside? Not only the Tobirapo present. Even though Kaido himself, his pupils couldn't help but shrink, and he stood up suddenly. He looked at the newspaper in disbelief, and was somewhat shocked by the black and white headlines on it. According to the World Economy News report, Obaskluk is the mastermind behind the Netherworld Pirates. Gecko Moria, who once fought with you, was killed by him a few months ago. King continued, and it is said that after invading Impel Down, he also subdued the Hade jailer, Shiryu. Now he has officially entered the New World. Hiss. Is Obaskluk crazy? Listening to King's introduction. Not to mention Sasaki, Black Maria, Ulti and others. As a member of CP9, who's who was not completely ignorant of Impel Down, he couldn't help but take a deep breath. Impel Down is where countless vicious guys are imprisoned. Obaskluk dared to invade it and take them all away. Is this an attempt to subdue these guys? Empty Impel Down. What a messy guy. Kaido laughed loudly. It seems that his ambition is really big. However, those unruly villains can't be subdued just by wanting to. Captain, they should have entered the New World now. Do we need to change our plan? King asked. The current Hobaskluk led the Netherworld pirates to march into the New World with great fanfare. They are no longer the 2 or 3 kittens they thought before. Change the plan? No need. Let's go to the first half of the New World. Without hesitation, Kaido made a decision. His demon-like figure was full of majestic aura and walked straight outside. Tell Joker to find out the whereabouts of the Netherworld pirates as soon as possible. This is his last chance. It just so happens that I'm interested in Impel Down's prisoners. Chapter 194, Monet's speculation this time, the first half of New World. Dressrosa, King's Plateau. He actually raided the Impel Down, what a crazy guy. In the magnificent palace, looking at the newspaper that was just delivered. Don Quixote da Flamengo, also known as Heavenly Yaksha, was one of the 7 warlords of the sea, held his forehead and laughed muffledly. Fufafu, known as the Iron Wall, the #1 prison in the world that has never been successfully invaded in 800 years was breached, and tens of thousands of prisoners were all taken away quietly. I'm afraid the world government will be disgraced this time. Those guys are probably already very angry, right? The outside world doesn't know Don Quixote da Flamengo's true identity because the Don Quixote family was one of the 20 royal families that created the behemoth world government. He is a descendant of the 20 kings, once a celestial dragon, born with a golden key in his mouth, and enjoys supreme privileges. However, became his father, voluntarily giving up his status as a world noble and foolishly leaving Mary Jo Eyes to live like a mortal. As a result, Da Flamengo fell into the clouds, lost his identity as a celestial dragon, and became an ordinary person. When the news that they were once a celestial dragon was accidentally leaked, those in the sea who had long-standing grudges because their relatives were bullied and persecuted by celestial dragons and those who always hated celestial dragons in their hearts directly transferred all their hatred to them. The people who came to their homes hunted them down. Later, he did not hesitate to kill his father, took his head back to Mary Jo Eyes, and tried to restore his identity as celestial dragons. However, he was ruthlessly rejected and was even hunted down because he discovered the secret of the world government. For this reason, Da Flamengo had a strong resentment towards the celestial dragon. He was always thinking about revenge on the world government, hoping that one day he could bring down those high-ranking people down. Seeing the failure of the world government, it is natural to feel a little pleasure from the world government's misfortune. Indeed. It's incredible. How did those guys do it? You know, Marine Headquarters, Inai's Lobby, and Impel Down are called the 3 major agencies of the world government. There is a huge whirlpool in the middle. They only need to pass through the gates of justice, and they can follow the current to travel into other agencies in the shortest time possible. It's incredible that those Marines didn't notice such a big movement at all. It's not just Da Flamengo himself. The Don Quixote family cadre present were all surprised and couldn't believe it either. But then again, pointing to the newspaper about the news that Gecko Maria, a warlord of the sea, had been defeated, Diamandi said in a deep voice to Da Flamengo, Dover, it turns out that Moria has been killed by that Hobaskluk, and by borrowing the identity of the warlord of the sea, he established the Netherworld pirates and has been hiding in the Floria Triangle all this time. No wonder we have mobilized all our strength, but we can't find any trace of him. These days, under the pressure of the beast pirate, the Don Quixote family has mobilized all their power in the underworld. But Hobaskluk and Nico Robin seem to have disappeared, with no trace of their whereabouts at all. It turned out to be hiding in Gecko Moria's lair, the Florian Triangle. Bah, who would have thought? Da Flamengo looked at Hobaskluk's bounty and sneered, when you encounter a monster like him, you can only blame yourself for being unlucky. Fellow warlord of the sea Gecko Moria was killed, he didn't care at all, let alone feel any sadness or anger, share the same hatred, or anything like that. After all, being killed so easily proves that this guy is nothing more than that, and he is not worthy of being listed as the 7 warlords of the sea with Da Flamengo. By the way, the picture. Treble, who was standing next to him, came over and said worriedly, the beast's pirates just called, asking us to find the traces of the Netherworld pirates as soon as possible. If we can't find the whereabouts of these guys this time, I'm afraid they won't let us off easily. Those bastards. Da Flamengo's face darkened. Immediately, his eyes flickered, and he said with a ferocious smile, don't worry, now that the Netherworld pirates have begun to march into the New World, I believe that Hobaskluk will settle down soon somewhere. If there is a chance. He really wanted to cooperate with the Netherworld pirates. After all, even though he had to give in and make compromises due to Kaido's power. He dares not challenge Beast's pirates head-on, but that doesn't mean that he really regards himself as Beast's pirate's dog. If the Netherworld pirates really have the power to compete with the Beast's pirates, He definitely wouldn't mind giving Beast's pirates a little nudge to teach Kaido a lesson. Monet, is Violet still missing? Doflamingo took a deep breath. Suppressing his inner dissatisfaction, he asked Monet in a deep voice. I'm very sorry, young master, that woman seems to have disappeared, and her whereabouts can't be found at all. Monet was full of apologies. However, we have just received a special piece of information. I heard that from the kingdom of Prudence next door, 2 distinguished guests seem to have come and were warmly entertained by King Elizabello II. It was about the time after Violet's betrayal. Oh? After hearing Monet's report, Doflamingo, who had a calm expression on his face, couldn't help but raise his eyebrows. What do you mean? A few years ago, when I was undercover in the palace as a maid, I accidentally heard King Riku's queen mention that King Riku and Elizabello II have been a good friend for many years. Before Doflamingo led the Don Quixote family to usurp the throne of Dressrosa, Monet, who had been lurking in the palace as an undercover agent, said bluntly, so, young master. I suspect that King Riku and his family are probably hiding there. That's it. Doflamingo's eyes under the sunglasses flashed, and he laughed ferociously. Would you like to play with me under the light? Violet, you are still young. He was almost convinced. King Riku is most likely hiding in the palace of Prudence Kingdom. It looks like I'm going to the kingdom of Prudence. Without waiting for Doflamingo to finish, Diamante, who was on the side, suddenly pointed to the sky in the distance and shouted, Look! What is that? Chapter 195, Doflamingo's Panic and Uneasiness. That is? Black spots? No. That's an island. Floating island? Above the king's plateau. All of the Don Quixote family look in the direction Diamante pointed. The black spot is getting larger and clearer. It was a huge island, flying over from the sky. And around it, more black spots appeared, which were a little bit blurry. The cadres of the Don Quixote family couldn't help but widen their eyes and open their mouths wide while showing a look of disbelief. Hey, are you kidding me? Looking at the distance, the uninvited guests came from across the sky with great momentum. Doflamingo, who was originally smiling, had a drastic change of expression. Why are those guys here? The increasingly clear sight of the thriller bark allowed him to directly determine the identity of the visitor. He never expected that the Netherworld pirates, who had just been revealed to have officially entered the New World, would appear here with great fanfare. For a time, he felt a strong uneasiness. Treble, send a message to the Beast's pirates immediately. Although, if there is a chance, he doesn't mind teaming up with the Netherworld pirates. But for the sake of caution, Doflamingo issued an order immediately and notified Beast's pirates. Anyway, Wano is relatively far away if Obaskluk is not here to cause trouble. After Kaido, the Beast, arrived, these guys should have left. Yes, Dover, I'll contact them right away. Treble was also a little flustered and left in a hurry. Luke had once fought against Garp, seriously injuring him and escaping unharmed. Moreover, Obaskluk had quietly killed one of the 7 warlords and emptied the impel down under Marine's nose. He's a ruthless man with a bounty of up to 2.2 billion. Who knows whether he is an enemy or a friend? Now, thriller bark is coming from the sky. Have we finally arrived? Luke crossed his arms and looked down at the island in the distance with a circle of boulders surrounding it like a barrier. His observation hockey has already covered the entire island. In front of him, those auras of different strengths and weaknesses were exposed. Violet, on the side, pursed her lips tightly. Her eyes were complicated, full of expectation, and a little hesitant, feeling deeply pressured. She has no worries at all about whether they can defeat the Don Quixote family. After all, she knew the strength of the Netherworld pirates and Doflamingo family too well. The two are not on the same level at all. It's just that this domineering and powerful man has already said it. Once revenge is successful, and she regains the Dressrosa, she, the princess of the Riku royal family, must succeed her father, King Riku Dolto I, and become the new ruler of Dressrosa. Can she really do it? Not far away, Law was holding the sword while shedding tears. He stared at the island in front of him, with a bit of excitement on his face. Mr. Corazon, I will avenge you soon. Shiryu, I leave it to you. Luke said directly after turning his head to face Shiryu and others. A mere Don Quixote family, the strongest is only warlord of the sea and he's not the world's strongest swordsman like Mihawk. There is no need for him to take action personally. Otherwise, why would he recruit so many people if he had to take action every time? Hey, it's just the heavenly Yaksha. Don't worry. Shiryu showed a smile, full of fighting spirit. He was trying to prove his strength to the outside world through a hearty victory. Otherwise, how can he increase his bounty? And Doflamingo, one of the 7 warlords of the sea. This opponent is obviously just right. Hey, what a rare visitor. Doflamingo, who rely on the ability of string fruit to fly at the sky at an astonishing speed, soon arrived at the coast and stopped in place. Then he looked directly at the leader of the Netherworld pirates. "This is our first meeting. I am Don Quixote da Flamengo, the king of Dressrosa. I wonder why everyone from the Netherworld pirates came to Dressrosa." However, his words are not yet finished when he notices Violet, who is following Luke on the thriller bark. "Violet? You?" Da Flamengo's pupil shrank sharply. He had an ominous premonition, and he broke out in a cold sweat. No wonder the Don Quixote family has been unable to find this woman's whereabouts. Unexpectedly, she was already following Netherworld pirates without knowing when. "I showed up here, you should already know what's going on, right? Da Flamengo." Violet clenched her fist tightly while looking directly at Da Flamengo and shouting loudly. "Hey, Violet, I didn't expect you to join the Netherworld pirates." Da Flamengo's face darkened, and his heart sank. If he had known better, he would have been more ruthless and killed this woman directly. He didn't expect that he would face a serious problem in the future because of her. She climbed the Netherworld pirates' high ladder to get revenge. "Da Flamengo, you should remember me, right?" Law stood up and glared at Da Flamengo, whose face was changing and uncertain, and said coldly, "Are you Law?" Law was recognized at a glance. Da Flamengo forced himself to calm down and said with a smile, "Hey, I've been waiting for you to come back. The position of the cadre of the Don Quixote family, I've always kept it for you." He didn't expect that apart from Violet, Trafalgar Law, whom the Don Quixote family has been searching for all these years, is actually on a thriller bark. "Stop pretending to be a good person, I know exactly what you want to do with the op fruit." Looking directly at Da Flamengo, Law's face was full of sarcasm. Then he gritted his teeth and said loudly and hatefully, "The condition for me to join the Netherworld pirates is to kill you and avenge Mr. Corazon." "Revenge for Corazon?" Da Flamengo's smile froze. The veins on his forehead throbbed, and his eyes darkened. "Sure enough, are you like that guy and want to betray me?" At this moment, his back was already soaked with cold sweat. He didn't expect that Law, whose heart was once full of darkness and madness, would want to destroy and take revenge on the world. He was so deeply influenced by his younger brother Corazon. He looked like he wanted to kill him immediately. And what makes Da Flamengo deeply uneasy is that two guys who have a grudge against him and want to take their heads all the time, they actually all joined the Netherworld pirates. In particular, although Obaskluk did not speak. However, the attitude is self-evident, and it is obvious that their purpose is not good. "You didn't expect it, did you?" Law's face was filled with anger. Looking at Da Flamengo, his eyes were full of unspeakable murderous intent, and he gritted his teeth and said, "When you killed Mr. Corazon, I was hiding in the box behind him. In order to protect me, he held on until you leave. The reason why I live until now is to take revenge for Mr. Corazon." Chapter 196, Crushed. "Mr. Luke, you don't really want to stand up for them." Standing on the thin and invisible silk thread, Da Flamengo, who was hanging steadily in midair, took a deep breath. He looked at the thriller bark opposite. Although Luke had not spoken, his aura made him a little frightened and he tried to salvage the situation as much as possible. "I think there is a lot of room for cooperation between the two sides of us. And the Beast's pirates have been looking for you. The governor of Beast's pirate heard about your arrival and rushed here as soon as possible." At the end, he pulled the tiger skin and brought up Kaido, the Beast, in hope to use this notorious monster to shock the other party. "Kaido, the Beast?" Luke raised his eyebrows and sneered. "Humphrey, I heard that he has been looking for my whereabouts recently. I just want to meet him. Even if it is the strongest creature on land, sea, and air, so what? At this point, who is he, Obaskluk, afraid of? No need to struggle, Da Flamengo." The next moment, in Da Flamengo's horrified eyes, Luke's eyes, like a hawk, are so sharp that people can't look directly at them, stare straight at him, whether it's your head or everything from the Don Quixote family. Our Netherworld pirates want it. Da Flamengo's expression changed drastically. His face was ashen while staring at Luke with gritted teeth. "Do you think you can defeat me?" "Sorry, I can defeat you." Luke showed a contemptuous smile. The next moment, Da Flamengo felt a flash in front of his eyes. A terrifying figure suddenly appeared in front of him like a ghost. "Do you have any objection?" "What?" His whole body's hair stood up. The moment he retreated subconsciously, his 5 fingers became claws. But before he could attack, bang! A fierce kick had already landed hard in his abdomen. Cough. The terrifying force made Da Flamengo's face distorted, he spat out blood, and his eyes bulged out. He looked at the imposing figure in disbelief, full of anger and unwillingness, as he flew out like an arrow from a bow. There was a loud bang. The sky was filled with smoke and dust. In the horrified eyes of the cadres of the Don Quixote family, Doflamingo's figure was like a cannonball, slamming into the king's plateau. A large area of the mountain collapsed directly, and his whole body was embedded in it. Dover. Young master. Witnessing this horrifying scene, the Don Quixote family members all rushed over to the ruins. They never expected that Doflamingo, who they thought was powerful and not afraid of even Admiral, would be crushed in an instant. Islands and fleets? Gulu. Why are they flying in the air? Oh my god, what's going on? Don't worry, they must be here to cause trouble for the Don Quixote family. Then. And the people in the town were frightened by the sudden movement. Staring blankly at the thriller bark that crossed the coast and flew towards the King's Plateau and the fleet surrounding it. They all opened their mouths wide and sweated profusely. Some were terrified, while others started to flee in panic. On the King's Plateau, Doflamingo, who was embedded in the mountain, had blood flowing from the corner of his mouth and staggered out, looking embarrassed. His 5 fingers pressed on his collapsed chest and kept moving there. Lines of threads that were almost invisible to the naked eye repair his damaged internal organs. Black prison, Obaskluk. The eyes under the sunglasses stare at the thriller bark that keeps getting closer while causing great panic in the town. Looking directly at the somewhat blurry figure in the distance, he was filled with unspeakable fear and solemnity. This monster is so powerful. He always thought that the other party was just a kid, even though he was powerful. The rumors outside were somewhat exaggerated. He thought that if nothing unexpected happened, Obaskluk would be at most as powerful as him or slightly better. There is still a big gap between him and the real monsters like Kaido of the Beasts. But he didn't expect that this man's strength would be so terrifying. He completely crushed him. Doflamingo has always been a very proud person. Born as a celestial dragon, he was born with noble blood. Even if he fell from the clouds, Tauripal, Diamante, and others still worshipped him because of his conqueror haki and regarded him as the young master. They firmly believed that he could become the king and lead them to glory. But that proud heart was easily shattered by a man. That man was Kaido, the beast. His body was like a demon, and his power was like a monster. He had no power to resist and was easily defeated. The other party wanted to kill him, just like killing an ant. It made him feel endless fear in his heart. Even though many years had passed. But every time he heard the other party's name, he subconsciously felt dread and fear and sweated uncontrollably. Now, the pride that was already very little was completely shattered by another man. Damn. Is the gap so big? Ignoring the calls from Torbal and others. While repairing his injuries, Doflamingo gritted his teeth and felt pain coming from his body. He stared unwillingly at the figure on the thriller bark that came across the sky. He clenched his fists tightly, and nails were embedded in his flesh. Indistinctly, Doflamingo seemed to see Kaido's shadow of Kaido overlapping with the other party. In the beginning, that terrible monster just threw a simple blow. It crushed all his pride and made him tremble till now. Is this what is called genius? What kind of enviable talent and qualifications? If he had such talent and strength, those high-ranking guys in the world government would have asked him to return to the Holy Land, Mary Joyce. Chapter 197, Shiryu vs Doflamingo TSK, they're not on the same level at all. On the thriller bark. Looking at Doflamingo, who's in embarrassed state and was staggering in the distance, Law couldn't help but smile. Luke's strength is really terrifying. A warlord of the sea was completely unable to block his move. Mother, sister. That guy, Doflamingo, is going to get his punishment. You can finally rest in peace. Violet, on the side, was full of excitement. She clenched her fists tightly and tears well up in her eyes. Captain, didn't you say you would leave it to me? Sure, you said a little speechlessly. I'm sorry, that guy has a face that deserves a beating. People can't help but want to kick it when they see it. Luke shrugged and said with a smile, but I didn't use much force. Although he vomited a few mouthfuls of blood, he still didn't lose his fighting ability. I'll leave it to you next. Suddenly, Luke's eyes flashed red, and he seemed to have foreseen something. Roar. Under everyone's, a giant pink dragon appeared in the sky in the blink of an eye. Its terrifying momentum is so violent that people can't help but shudder. The bloody mouth opened wide, embodying dazzling firelight and blast towards the king's plateau. In an instant, there was a loud explosion, and flames shot into the sky. King's plateau collapsed, and the entire castle was reduced to rubble. Luke's eyelids twitched. He held down Lucci, who was about to go down, and said to him, and sure you too, don't be too messy. Dressrosa is Violet's country. Try not to cause too much damage. Although, he is not very interested in Dressrosa and does not care about the life and death of people at all. But considering Violet is going to be the queen of this country after all, it is better to control the scope of damage as much as possible. In fact, if it weren't for the Don Quixote family acting as a whetstone to give everyone in the Netherworld pirates good training, he would take action directly. That's such a shame. Lucci stopped, feeling helpless. He couldn't wait to show off his strength. After finally acquiring such a powerful devil fruit, he always feels a little regretful if he doesn't show it in front of others. After all, his goal is to become Luke's right-hand man and a number 2 member of the Netherworld Pirates. Naturally, he doesn't want to be compared to Shiryu. Although it's a bit excessive, I'm very sorry. Please be sure not to cause too much damage or casualties, please everyone. Hearing Luke's words, Violet realized something, broke out in a cold sweat, and was busy pleading. She had seen with her own eyes Shiryu and Rob Lucci's abilities and how powerful they would be if they really let go of their scruples. Since it's one of our own, I'll try to be more careful. Shiryu nodded. Without any more nonsense, he flew directly out and rushed towards the King's Plateau. The Shadowkin army and the zombie army will not take action, and the cadres of the Don Quixote family will be left to you. Luke looked directly at Law, Kid, Wiper, Lafitte, Brooke and other members of the Netherworld Pirates, and said with a chuckle, "We are pirates, don't be so stupid about honor and fighting them one-on-one. It's enough if you can beat them in a group fight." Although the cadres of the Don Quixote family are quite powerful. But these members of the Netherworld Pirates are not just idlers. Although people like Law, Kid, Wiper, and others still need time to grow, they have an advantage in terms of numbers and devil fruit abilities, and they will not be easily crushed. Just enough to get a good workout. Understood? That would be great. What I wish for. Wahaha, my hands are itching unbearably. Everyone, come on, don't let that guy, Shiryu, get the first step. He can kill them all by himself. For a while, the cadres of the Netherworld Pirates, their eyes were burning with fire, eager to try. They each picked a zombie pterosaur and rode on it, then rushed towards the King's Plateau immediately. Even Robin is in it. After training for so long, there is no shortage of actual combat. But in the end, most of them were fighting zombies and Shadowkins. When they enter the new world to fight against those strong men, they are looking forward to it. Impel Down's head jailer, Shiryu? On the King's Plateau, watching Shiryu flying by. Doflamingo's pupil shrank sharply as he recognized the other party, and his heart couldn't help but sink. Bah, what an arrogant guy. He glanced at the forefront figure standing there on the thriller bark in the distance. He couldn't help but clenched his fists. Did Obaskluk think that he was not qualified at all and ask Shiryu to take action? While he breathed a sigh of relief, Doflamingo couldn't help but feel a little angry and unspeakably aggrieved. He is a warlord of the sea, yet he is so despised by the other party. I didn't expect that. I'm quite famous. I'm sorry, but I want to borrow your head. Floating in midair. Shiryu chewed his cigar and smiled. Looking at the hostile and somewhat wary Don Quixote family. Shiryu unsheathed his sword like lightning and struck out violently, slicing wave. Whoosh! A blazing flying slash appeared out of thin air, striking out like lightning. It mercilessly attacked Doflamingo and others whose expressions changed greatly. The strong explosion shook the sky. Smoke and dust billowed everywhere. One figure after another retreated violently, narrowly dodging the terrifying blow. On the King's Plateau, a shocking sword mark was left. Whoosh! The sound of something breaking through the air sounded as several threads that were as fast as bullets fly towards Shiryu's location. Hey! Relying on the fairly strong observation Hockey's prediction. Shiryu moves his body, easily dodging Doflamingo's attack. In the past few days, he has often competed with zombie kings such as Rima and Shiki on the thriller bark and exchanged swordsmanship experiences. He is a great swordsman in his own right, and he is quite accomplished in swordsmanship, so he took advantage of the opportunity and secretly learned a few moves. Shiki's signature swordsmanship, Slicing Wave, is one of them. Not to mention, the float fruit can be used as a long-distance attack. It's really nice to be condescending and crush the target. He used it quite easily. Excess whip string. At this time, Doflamingo's tall figure flashed out. His right hand extended backward, and countless threads gathered and tore the air violently. Whoosh! There was a loud explosion in the sky, and the cold light caught people's attention. They saw that extremely sharp thread easily cut through the air while flying towards Shiryu. Little trick. Dragon slash. Shiryu smiled contemptuously. With no intention of dodging at all, he waved the sword in his hand. A fiery flying slash turned into a lifelike flying dragon. It roared out with its teeth and claws outreach and collided with the extremely sharp thread. Chapter 198, Things Are Different Now. Boom. Above the King's Plateau. Two figures clashed fiercely and refused to give in to each other. At this moment, Doflamingo, who has the string fruit ability, did not gain the upper hand in the sky. Instead, he was quickly suppressed by Shiryu with his powerful strength and fell directly at a disadvantage. This made the cadres of the Don Quixote family change their minds and they became extremely anxious. Asshole. The ground rumbled. 2 stone hands, even bigger than those of the giants, suddenly stretched out from the ground. As if swatting a fly, he swatted at Yu, who was fighting Doflamingo. Tempest kick, line. On top of a zombie pterosaur, a tall and thin figure rushed down. His right foot was like lightning as he kicked out violently. It was Lucci. The eye-catching crescent-shaped slash came through the air. Just like cutting tofu, he easily cut off 2 huge stone hands. It's frightening. That guy. Treble, Diamante, and others' eyes widened. Looking in disbelief at the figure rushing down from midair, their pupils shrank sharply. TSK, it's Lucci as expected, he is getting stronger. On top of another pterosaur, Califa marvels at Lucci's strength. She didn't expect that the Tempest kick performed by Lucci without using Devil Fruit ability would be so powerful. Of course, Luke once said that this artificial Devil Fruit is very special. Robin chuckled lightly and said, to a certain extent, it not only copies the Azure Dragon Fruit but also perfectly integrates the lineage factors derived from Kaido the Beast himself. As time goes by, it will subtly influence and strengthen the body of the Devil Fruit user all the time. Even without using the Devil Fruit ability, Lucci's body is already many times stronger than before. This is not Luke's nonsense. With the full development of one's own Devil Fruit ability, although Rob Lucci has become an artificial Devil Fruit user, it is unlikely that he will become the strongest creature on land, sea, and air like Kaido. But sooner or later, his body will gradually become that of an inhuman monster. This is the huge change brought about by the artificial mythical zone fruit. It can be said that Lucci has obtained the ticket to become a truly strong person, but whether he can cross the threshold depends on whether he works hard enough in the future. So that's what it is. TSK, that's really exaggerated. Dr. Vegapunk is indeed the world's #1 genius scientist. Wahaha, it really makes people jealous. It's not just Califa. Law, Kid, Kaku, Blueno, Urge, Lafitte, and others who were riding around on pterosaurs suddenly realized and couldn't help but envy Lucci. They, the members of the Netherworld Pirates, have naturally known about the existence of artificial Devil Fruit for a long time. It is also clear that what Lucci ate was the artificial Azure Dragon Fruit that Dr. Vegapunk once extracted from Kaido's lineage factor after spending a huge amount of money and a lot of time. They just didn't expect that artificial Devil Fruit to have such benefits. If it were them, they would be willing. At this time, Lucci's figure has not yet landed, but... Go to hell. Half Moon Glaive. Diamante's eyes were sinister and murderous. He waved his long sword and struck hard in Lucci's direction. Whoosh! A dazzling flying slash appears in the sky. Moonwalk. Kaku is very fast. While stepping into the air, he ran down. The 2 swords at his waist were unsheathed like lightning. Boom. The 2 swords deflect the astonishing flying slash to the ground, leaving a deep mark on it. Are you Rob Lucci from CP9? At the same time, Lao G, a cadre of the Don Quixote family, rushed up and attacked Rob Lucci, the mark of the G. Hey, let me play with you. Fire fist. A burst of fire burst out. Jin's figure fell to the ground. Along with the fiery breath, his right wrist turned into a flame. The giant fist of flames expands and burns, causing the air to distort. Carrying an astonishing impact, it blasted out brazenly. What? It's not just Lao G. The Don Quixote family officials present could not help but have a drastic change of expression due to shock. They never expected that there would be such a Devil Fruit user among the Netherworld Pirates. Boom. Fire shot into the sky. The flames were raging, and the smoke was billowing. The ground collapsed, and rocks flew. After joining the Netherworld Pirates, these days, he's learning under Rima and like Wiper, he himself is practicing unremittingly every day. Moreover, Flame Fruit has developed to an astonishing degree under Luke's guidance. This made him no longer the person he used to be in East Blue. Damn, you guy. Go to hell. Suddenly, numerous bullets come at full speed. It is from Baby 5, a cadre under the Don Quixote family. Arms morphosis. She jumped up high, her hands and feet turned into guns, and kept firing at Jin. A large number of bullets continuously flew into the air and penetrated Jin's body, creating a large spark of fire. Huh? Seeing this scene, Baby 5's expression changed, and she took off the cannon on her back without hesitation and pointed it at Jin. Then she pulled the trigger, and several rockets shot through the air like lightning and bombed Jin's figure. Bomb. The rockets caused a violent explosion. Thick smoke billowed into the air. But not for long. The next moment, the flame burst out, and Jin walked directly out of the smoke. His body was burning with clusters of flames, and he was unscathed. What? Baby 5's attack is completely ineffective? Is this guy, like Monet, a Logia user? This horrific scene, no matter if it's Baby 5 herself, Lao Ji, Treble, Monet, and others, who were still a little embarrassed, their eyes could not help but narrow. While glaring at Jin, they were a little shocked. Obviously, they didn't expect the other party to actually be a Logia user. And those ordinary members of the Don Quixote family who were alerted by the sudden huge movement, armed with swords, guns, and other weapons, rushed over to support one after another. They couldn't help but feel shocked, and their scalp turned numb after seeing such a scene. Chapter 199, Instantly Kill Without Warning. A head flew up. The stunning flying slash directly beheaded Doflamingo. Young master. The sudden change made countless Don Quixote family cadres and pirates scream in shock. Unexpectedly, Doflamingo was killed so easily. Huh? However, Shiryu did not feel any joy, but his eyes narrowed. Fulbright. 5 detached strings came through. However, the sword wrapped around by armament hockey accurately blocked it. At the same time, Doflamingo, who was just beheaded, suddenly rushed forward, excess whip string. Whoosh! Countless strings gathered together and turned into a sharp and tough long whip. Shiryu suddenly flew out, dodging the long whip that flew towards him. Boom! In the distant town, a large number of buildings were ruthlessly chopped up like tofu. At this moment, Shiryu's figure disappears in the blink of an eye, and he passes through Doflamingo's body like lightning, leaving a crisscross-shaped wound on Doflamingo's body. Does the clone stop here? He didn't even look at the destroyed string clone. Instead, he looked directly at Doflamingo, who had an ugly face across from him with a sneer. With a sharp look, the sword in his hand suddenly swung out, Thousand Slice Valley. Whoosh! One after another, dazzling flying slash came. Like dense raindrops covering the sky, it blasted away Doflamingo, who suddenly appeared behind. Off-white. The headless Doflamingo flew directly over and turned into a large amount of strings, blocking the incoming attack. On the other side, the huge stone hand was ruthlessly shattered. Rob Lucci moved quickly and avoided several extremely sharp stone thorns that suddenly appeared from the ground. Rob Lucci, you can't hurt me. God of Destruction. Pika's voice is so sharp that you can't help but laugh when hearing it. Looking at the huge stone statue emerging from the mountain, Lucci didn't say anything nonsense and kicked out like lightning. Tempest Kick, line. A fiery flying slash headed straight at the stone giant. Boom. The stone giant, which was as big as a mountain, was split into two in an instant. However, one stone pike after another thrust out from the ground and attacked Lucci fiercely. Whoosh! At this moment, he kept moving and dodging while frowning. Is this the ability of the stone fruit? What a slippery guy. Crossfire. Fire Fist. G-Seal. Not far away, the flame shot into the sky as Jin and Lao Ji confronted fiercely. This cadre of the Don Quixote family, who is just in his early 60s and has not yet completely aged, seems to be much stronger than the two top cadres, Diamandi and Treble. With proficiency in observation hockey and armament hockey, he was even on par with Jin. On the other side of the battlefield, ice and snow are flying. A lot of snow came overwhelmingly, trying to trap Nami, Burgess, Urge, and others who were falling to the ground. Buzz. But at this moment, a dazzling lightning suddenly appeared and struck Monet. Wiper's whole body was shining with lightning and exuding an astonishingly high temperature. Don't get in the way. Ah! Accompanied by shrill screams. Monet's body was scorched black by the lightning, and she fell there. Monet. Monet-sama. How can it be? Is not Monet-sama a Logia fruit user? Treble, Senor Pink and others all couldn't help but had a drastic change of expression and cried out. And those ordinary members of the Don Quixote family who came one after another to support opened their mouths wide in disbelief. The invincible Monet, in their minds, was instantly defeated. Even if we are both Logia fruit users, there are still differences between us. Looking at the Monet, whose eyes turned white and were burnt black. Wiper had no expression on his face and said coldly, "Snow will melt when encountering high temperatures. You should be the most afraid of high temperatures, right?" Far away, sparks sputter as blades keep clashing. Looking at Monet from a distance and then at Wiper, who was full of lightning. Diamante, who was fighting with Kaku, narrowed his eyes and broke into a cold sweat. Is he also a Logia fruit user? Hey, now is not the time for you to care about others. Kaku sneered. There are great swordsman teachers like Ruma and Shiki. As a swordsman, he would naturally not miss such an opportunity to ask for advice. These days, his swordsmanship has improved greatly. Whoosh! A cold light flashed as his two swords turned into afterimages and slashed wildly. This forced Diamandi to retreat in embarrassment and dodge hastily. Tempest Kick. But the next moment, Kaku jumped up, and his feet violently kicked out like lightning. Whoosh! The sound of breaking through the air continued, and the wind blade came one after another. Diamante pulled the red cloak behind him and blocked it in front of him. At this moment, the fluttering cloak actually made a sonorous sound. The wind blade that could directly cut through the boulder left shocking scratches on it, but it cannot penetrate it directly. It's unbelievable. Don't underestimate me. Army flag. Diamante shouted loudly and pressed one hand on the ground. The surrounding ground surged like a flag fluttering in the wind. Kiku, who had just landed, was almost unsteady. Viper Glaive. Immediately afterward, he waved his long sword. A fiery slash struck towards Kiku. Tempest Kick, Dragon Break. Boom. Chapter 200, everyone shows off their skills up. Don't let Viper steal the spotlight. You're right, we are not vegetarians either, wahahaha. At this time, Law, Nami, Kid, Khalifa, Nojiko, Brooke, Raj, Lafitte, Burgess, and others landed on the ground. Kill them. Damn, these guys. Everyone, attack them. The cadres of the Don Quixote family were shouting murderously while leading a large number of ordinary members of the Don Quixote family who rushed up with guns and ammunition, holding swords, guns, and other weapons. They charged forward to kill. Young master. Treble's face was distorted, and he gritted his teeth and roared, kill any member of the Netherworld Pirates, and you can get 100 million belly from the Don Quixote family. 100 million belly? Ha ha ha, the bounty is mine. Go. Kill them. Hearing about such a huge reward, the eyes of those minions turned red all of a sudden. One by one, they rushed forward with howls and screams like crazy. A large number of pirates launched attacks with guns and cannons. 100 million belly per head? Then you have to live to have it. Easily dodging several incoming bullets while looking at those red-eyed pirates who rushed forward without fear of death, Law couldn't help but sneer, with the palm of his left hand facing down. Room, amputate. Buzz. The Op Fruits ability was instantly activated, opening up a hemispherical area. Over a dozen ordinary members of the Don Quixote family were cut into pieces instantly. Ah! What happened? My body was chopped into pieces. Whose head is on my butt? Ah! Where is my head? Very strangely, there's no single drop of blood. However, the broken bodies and limbs that were scattered everywhere were pieced together haphazardly, making these pirates from the Don Quixote family appear in a completely inhuman form. The horrifying scene makes people's scalp numb. Thunder weather. Ignoring the hail of bullets, Nami's whole body was floating in the air. Half of her body has become clouds while her hands are constantly releasing large amounts of cloud that slowly turned into dark clouds. Boom. 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 Several bolts of lightning landed down without mercy on the pirates from the Don Quixote family. Ah! Repel. Electric sparks shine. Kid activated his Devil Fruit ability and a large number of metal products are attracted by the magnetic force and gather together him. But the next moment, it was reflected directly forward at an astonishing speed toward the incoming pirate. Ah! Allah! There must be a brave man under the heavy reward. Khalifa shook her whip and pushed up her glasses with a smile. There was no fear in her eyes, but instead she was full of fighting spirit and eager to try. Slavery. The long whip, like thorns and covered with barbs, kept flying out as if it had life. She whips the incoming pirate mercilessly, behave and kill the guys from the Don Quixote family. A pirate's scream there, with a lot of his skin torn apart. Ah! Damn, are you being controlled? What exactly is that ability? But what is very strange is that those pirates who were whipped by Khalifa had each of their eyes completely red, and they waved their swords and fired their guns wildly toward their companions. Lush. Green grass. Nojiko scattered a large number of seeds out. Then, it continued to grow there at a speed visible to the naked eye, turning into a large number of green grass vines and tangled towards those incoming pirates. Yo ho ho ho, waltz. Brooke rushed forward with great speed. His sword, which carried an astonishing coldness, swept out. One of the pirates was frozen directly, and his body was frozen there, unable to move. At the same time, their body was struck by a sharp, cold light that ruthlessly passed through their bodies, making them fall into a pool of blood. Hey, ha ha ha, it's useless. No matter how you attack, it will be ineffective. With both hands, he made strange, lucky gestures. Bartolomeo smiled strangely there, with a green barrier condensing in front of him, blocking a large number of bullets and rockets. Under his control, the huge ejected barrier directly rushes towards the incoming pirates. Barrier crash. Boom. Instant transmission iron ball. Clang. 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 Raj swaggered and ran out. With the iron body he had mastered, his tall and strong body became as indestructible as steel. A large number of bullets fell on his body, making a clanging sound. It has to be said that his unique talent in the iron body is far superior to that of the elite agents of CP9. Especially under Luke's guidance, it wasn't even just using the iron body for defense. When able to move at high speed, the iron body can also be used effectively and perfectly integrated into the battle. Ha. Bang. The fists were like after images, swung out wildly. One of the pirates screamed and was mercilessly blown away by him. Don't get carried away. Senor Pink suddenly rushed out of the ground like a swimmer, causing a wave as he directly appeared from Ridge's back and hugged his waist tightly as he tried to give him a back throw. Roar. But at that moment, a huge falcon appeared there, and it bit hard at Senor Pink's face. Senor Pink's expression changed drastically, and he had to let go of Ridge and jumped into the ground immediately. 10-ton vice. At this moment, a bloated figure fell from the sky while holding a metal shield toward Burgess, who had transformed into a falcon at an astonishing speed. Boom. Burgess moved quickly and narrowly avoided it. The ground cracked, raising large amounts of smoke and dust. Damn, these guys. Watch this scene. Treble's face looks livid, and he feels intensely uneasy. Weirdly, his hair stood up inexplicably. With a not particularly powerful observation hockey, he subconsciously dodges. Whoosh. Several invisible bullets suddenly pass through his previous location. However, it was narrowly avoided by Trebo and instead hit several pirates behind him, splashing a large amount of blood. Damn it. Sniper? Covering the bruised blood on his face. Treble was shocked and angry, and he could not help but feel chill. Whoa, but the next moment, an astonishing hurricane swept over suddenly. Kuro's figure was so fast that he was completely invisible to the naked eye. Treble had no time to dodge. Ah! A shrill scream sounded. Several invisible wind blades landed on his body. Chapter 201, The Defeated Cadres. Damn it, that bastard. What zone fruit exactly is that? The cadres of the Don Quixote family, who were having a fierce battle with the members of the Netherworld Pirates, couldn't help but have a drastic change of expression. No one expected that Treble would be seriously injured and fall into a pool of blood. Don't worry, I didn't kill him. Kuro held up his round-framed glasses with his palms. Kuro, who had a ferocious appearance, was licking the bloody claws. Then he smiled full of bloodlust and looked at the other cadres of the Don Quixote family present. Next, it's your turn. Looking at the figure that was covered in fur and holding up extremely sharp sickle claws, looking extremely ferocious. Everyone's eyes were filled with fire, and they were extremely angry. But at the same time, they can't help but feel cold. That's not like an ordinary zone fruit at all. The speed just now was really too fast. It's almost impossible to react to. Whoosh. At this moment, Sugar, who is only the size of a 9-year-old child, actually showed amazing speed and directly touched a pirate from the Don Quixote family. Skullcracker dolls. The pirate screamed and turned into a strange toy there. Gah. He turned into a huge doll monster, moving staggeringly there, but his speed became faster as he moved towards Kuro. Whoosh. A hurricane struck, and Kuro's figure disappeared. The sharp wind blade tore the doll monster into pieces, and it splattered on the ground, but in the blink of an eye, they gathered again. It returned to its previous state and continued to attack Kuro without pause. Huh? Immortal? While easily dodging the toy's attack, Kuro raised his eyebrows. Immediately afterward, he looked at Sugar and sneered, but no matter how powerful the ability is, the greatest weakness is the devil fruit user itself. Catapult pop. A loud roar broke through the air, and then a few inconspicuous stones shot out. It expanded at a speed visible to the naked eye and exploded suddenly. Boom. The shockwaves spread everywhere, and the smoke filled the air. Then, a tall and thin figure rushed up and stopped in front of Sugar. Gladius. Sugar, who was a little shocked because she was about to be targeted, couldn't help but breathe a sigh of relief. Whoa, however, the next moment, a strong wind swept through, and an extremely sharp wind blade appeared at their side. Ah! Blood flew everywhere while Gladius let out a scream. He arrived swiftly at this side but was defeated ruthlessly in an instant. At this moment, he turned into a horrible, bloody man with his life and death unknown as he fell into a pool of blood. You are too slow. Little brat, no one can protect you now. Kuro swung his sickle-like, bloody claws. Then he showed a stern smile and looked at Sugar, who was pale and sweating on her forehead. Next. It's your turn. Ah. Don't come over. Sugar screamed in horror. She stumbled backward and collapsed on the ground. Immediately afterward, her eyes rolled up, and she was so frightened by Kuro that she fainted. Kuro. Sugar. Damn it, she passed out. Damn it, we're in big trouble. But now, we can't worry about that much anymore. Seeing Sugar fainting due to fear, the cadres of the Don Quixote family couldn't help but have a drastic change of expression. But at this time, They can already say that they can't protect themselves, let alone care about this. In the already chaotic town, a large number of toys turned into humans and even beasts at a speed visible to the naked eye. It caused even greater chaos in an instant. Countless men and women cried bitterly as they recovered their memories due to the release of the Hobby Fruits ability. Many couples were originally deeply in love with each other, but because one party turned into a toy, the other party directly lost their memory of it, re-established a family, and even had children with each other. Destructive 1,000-ton vice. A huge figure appeared in midair and fell at an astonishing speed, crushing Ridge fiercely below. Karma exposure. Ridge yelled. The muscles all over his body tense up, and veins pop out. His body size expands at an alarming rate. Then, relying on the surge of power, the ground cracked under his feet, and he forcibly lifted McVise, who had adjusted his weight to more than 1,000 tons by relying on Parimsha, ton fruit, and threw him away hard. Hey, how much weight can you hold? Amid the smoke and dust, McVise floated up again. 1,000 tons of weight is far from the limit of my ability, hellish 10,000-ton vice. Dosefleur. But the next moment, Robin, who was not far away, dodged a few incoming bullets and took action directly. She intertwined her hands, and the petals flew everywhere. The next moment, a large number of arms suddenly appeared on McVise's body. Damn, what is this? Let me go. McVise screamed and tried to struggle but couldn't get rid of it. Armament hockey, finger pistol. Immediately afterward, slender fingers wrapped around by dark armament hockey stretched out. It was like bullets as it shot at McVise's vital points without mercy. Ah! McVise let out a scream. He was directly beaten into a hive by countless finger pistols. His whole body was dripping with blood, his eyes turned white, and he lost consciousness. Then, all of a sudden, he lost his support and fell straight from the sky. Boom! The ground cracked, and large amounts of smoke and dust rose into the air while a bloody figure was directly embedded in it. On the other side, Burgess, who transformed into a human beast form, and Senor Pink kept exchanging punches. Bang! In the end, both of them punched each other in the face and flew out like cannonballs. Wahaha, accept your fate. Your Don Quixote family will definitely lose. Burgess staggered and climbed out of the ruins. He was rough-skinned and thick-bodied, there was no serious injury around his body as he laughed there. Maybe. Senor Pink, who was wearing baby clothes, had blood on his face, staggered, with a bruised nose and a swollen face, and was in a miserable state. At this time, he looked at the sky. It seemed that he saw a woman holding a baby and smiling at him. He couldn't help but reveal a relieved smile. Apparently, you're a guy with a story. When Ridge saw this, his eyes couldn't help but condense. He stepped forward fiercely, and before Burgess could take action again, he had already rushed forward. A huge punch hit Senor Pink's head hard. Let this poor monk save you. Iron body, steel fist. Boom. Chapter 202, Downfall. On the other side of the battlefield, sword and sharp threads kept colliding. Excess whip string. But the tough and sharp thread was cut off ruthlessly. Although Doflamingo tried his best to defend himself with armament hockey, he was still severely blown away by the powerful and heavy slash. Several buildings were knocked down in succession. Boom. House after house was directly cut apart continuously by flying slashes. At this time, a large number of silk threads, shining with cold light, came suddenly. Shiryu, who was chasing after Doflamingo with murderous intent, easily dodged it. What a troublesome guy. A somewhat embarrassed Doflamingo wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth. Then he gritted his teeth and looked at Shiryu above with uncertain eyes. Is this all you can do? It's almost time to end it. Heavenly Yaksha. Shiryu bit his cigar while his whole body floated higher. Looking at the somewhat embarrassed Doflamingo below, he showed a sarcastic smile. He has roughly ascertained the opponent's strength. The strength of the 7 warlords of the sea is indeed not too weak, but it is just that. Despite being thousands of miles away from Luke, his conqueror's hockey is far from being able to entangle in an attack. Whether it is observation hockey or armament hockey, they are much worse than his. For an opponent like this, even if he doesn't use float fruit's ability, Shiryu is confident that he can easily defeat the opponent. Slicing wave. The next moment, the blade in his hand swung out brazenly. A dazzling flying slash flew out fiercely. Doflamingo reacted very fast and dodged to the side. Boom. There was a loud explosion. The huge ruins were directly split into 2 halves, leaving a shocking huge sword mark there. However, Doflamingo did not even have time to catch his breath because Shiryu launched a pursuit the next second. Whoosh! 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 One astonishing flying slash came down after another like they were free of charge. Several huge buildings were cut in half, and Doflamingo's embarrassed figure fell to the ground. Facing the pressing steps of Shiryu, He glanced at the thriller bark high in the sky. His face was extremely gloomy, and the veins on his forehead popped out. "Do you think this is all I have?" All of a sudden, the earth beneath his feet and surrounding buildings all turned into a large number of silk threads at a speed visible to the naked eye. That is? At this moment, high in the sky, on the huge thriller bark, Violet, who was nervously paying attention to the entire battle, her pupil could not help but shrink when she saw this amazing scene. The ground and buildings have all turned into threads. She didn't expect Doflamingo's string fruit to have such an ability because she had never seen the other party show it in front of others. Devil fruit has a deeper level of awakening. When the body and mind of the user catch up with the devil fruit ability, the devil fruit will truly awaken, and the user will gain more power. Luke sat casually on a boulder while paying attention to the battle below and said nonchalantly, "The awakening of Parimsha fruit like string fruit not only allows the user to control threads more easily and skillfully but also can affect the environment other than oneself. He can assimilate them into threads and manipulate them." In his opinion, the awakened string fruit is not weak, but it can't narrow the gap between Doflamingo and Shiryu. Everwhite. In an instant, the endless threads were like huge waves, surging up to submerge Shiryu, who was in midair. "Oh?" Shiryu raised an eyebrow. But the sword, Ryu, in his hand, was wrapped around by armament hockey and struck out directly. Without any surprise, the huge wave was cut in half. "Have your devil fruit been awakened?" The blade was pointed directly at Doflamingo, and Shiryu was full of contempt. "What a pity, you are too weak. Damn it, don't be so arrogant. Shiryu." Doflamingo's face turned livid. A large number of silk threads kept gathering together. Like a torrential wave, it once again surged and tried to submerge Shiryu, Everwhite. Dragon slash. A huge flying dragon slashed, tearing apart the endless waves of thread. Then it hit Doflamingo, whose expression changed drastically. Off-white. Smoke and dust billowed while Doflamingo's figure kept retreating violently. He distanced himself from Shiryu, and at the same time, the surrounding buildings continued to turn into threads. Flap thread. A large number of silk threads are constantly entangled and intertwined, forming sharp thread pillars, just like the wings of a flamingo. The tip was entangled with armament hockey, and with lightning speed, it attacked Shiryu hard from all directions. Clang. Shiryu simply swung his blade, cutting off those gleaming, extremely sharp thread pillars. At the same time, Doflamingo was locked on, and he pursued at an astonishing speed from a high altitude. "It's useless, just accept your fate. You can't escape, Doflamingo." Shiryu's eyes were murderous, full of bloodthirsty. God, Doflamingo looked sinister, then with full anger, he shouted, "There, thread." The endless threads gathered together and turned into 16 huge thread pillars wrapped around by armament hockey. The light was so intense that it tore through the atmosphere. Then, from all directions, it violently stabbed Shiryu high in the sky with endless murderous intent. Rainfall. Shiryu exudes an amazing momentum, and then his figure flashes with red light as he swings out his sword. Boom. A loud explosion broke through the air. One blazing flying slash fell from the sky like huge raindrops after another. There are no surprises. The dazzling flying slash severely tore apart the huge thread pillars and penetrated straight down. Doflamingo's pupils suddenly dilated. Chapter 203, Buster Call at Marine Headquarters, Maniford. Fleet Admiral Sengoku, something serious has happened. In the conference room, Branyu hurried over and loudly reported, one of the 7 warlords of the sea, Doflamingo, the Heavenly Yaksha, was attacked by the Netherworld pirate. Not long ago, we sent an undercover agent to the Don Quixote family, but the marine personnel who had been missing for a long time suddenly sent back news. The Netherworld pirates suddenly appear in Dressrosa, and the Don Quixote family has been defeated. What? The expressions of Sengoku, Vice Admiral Tsuru, and others changed drastically. Everyone couldn't help but jump up and look at Branyu in disbelief. Unexpectedly, the Netherworld pirates just broke into the New World and directly attacked Dressrosa. Obaskluk's actions are too fast, radical, and crazy. Damn, what happened to Heavenly Yaksha? Sengoku's face darkened, and he gritted his teeth and asked. It is said that Obaskluk did not take action personally, only those members of the Netherworld pirates participated in this war. Branyu stood up straight and reported quickly, just a few minutes ago, Doflamingo was defeated by the former head jailer of the Impel Down, Shiryu. What? Doflamingo was defeated? Shiryu, that traitor has indeed joined the Netherworld pirates. Hiss. After Gecko Moria, has another warlord of the sea been defeated? Hearing the report, Sengoku and all the staff's eyes shrink sharply. Although they all looked down upon the 7 warlords of the sea, they even wished that these guys would be killed as soon as possible. But since the opening of the Great Pirate Age, The world has fallen into unprecedented chaos, with countless pirates causing chaos everywhere. The Marine headquarters was fighting fires everywhere, and its troops were stretched thin, unable to suppress the increasingly violent and turbulent sea situation. In this case, the Seven Warlords of the Sea is one of the important forces specially created by the world government to work with the Marines to maintain the stability of the sea. They specially invited 7 pirates who are powerful and famous on the sea. The 7 Warlords of the Sea, Marine Headquarters, and the Great Pirate at the New World. Once the balance of the 3 major forces is broken, the sea, which has finally become stable due to the Marines' unremitting efforts over the years, will inevitably fall into chaos again. This is undoubtedly bad news for the Marines. In addition, Princess Violet, the heir to the Riku family, appeared in Dressrosa and was trying to appease the people. She said that she would replace her father, King Riku, become the Queen of Dressrosa and lead the country on the right track. Branyu paused for a moment but then added, it is worth noting that she also stated that Vice Admiral Virgo, the head of the G5 branch base, is the cadre from the Don Quixote family and is an undercover agent installed by Doflamingo within Marine. What? Vice Admiral Virgo is a cadre from the Don Quixote family? That bastard. Sengoku's complexion changed drastically. Vice Admiral Tsuru and the staff present were all a little shocked. They never expected that Heavenly Yaksha would place an undercover agent inside the Marine and the undercover agent would quietly climb into the position of Vice Admiral. If the news is accurate, then our work is really negligent. Vice Admiral Tsuru's expression changed, full of solemnity. A Vice Admiral was entrusted with the important task of becoming the base commander of the G5 branch. If he was an undercover agent sent by the Don Quixote family from the beginning, just thinking about it would make one's scalp numb. How much confidential information has the other party delivered to the Don Quixote family over the years? How many things have been hidden related to the Doflamingo family by using his identity as the G5 base commander? Thinking of this, Sengoku's face was ashen. He gritted his teeth and ordered, immediately have Virgo arrested and detained. He will be released after the situation is verified and his innocence is confirmed. Inform Aokiji and ask him to rush over to the G5 branch immediately to take charge of the work. Understood. Seeing Branyu stopped talking but had no intention of leaving. Is there anything else? Sengoku couldn't help but raise his eyebrows. Without hesitation, he waved directly. Except for Vice Admiral Tsuru, the other staff members present calmly retreated knowingly. That's it, Fleet Admiral Sengoku. Doflamingo used the power of his devil fruit to conspire to usurp the throne at Dressrosa, including manipulating King Riku Dolto I to kill people indiscriminately and becoming a tyrant that everyone wanted to beat. Even in private, the Don Quixote family has the hobby fruit user, Sugar, who turned a large number of disobedient citizens into toys and played with them at will. Their extremely evil behavior has been completely exposed. Branyu wiped his cold sweat and said cautiously, because the world government not only recruited him as the 7 Warlords of the Sea but also previously recognized him as the King of Dressrosa. Once the news spreads, I'm afraid it will have a huge impact on the reputation of the world government. The opinion of the world government is that in the name of the tyrant Riku Dolto I, and for colluding with the Netherworld pirates, Dressrosa should be deprived of its membership status. Thinking of the orders conveyed by the world government, Branyu couldn't help but swallow his saliva and added bravely. Furthermore, considering the increasing threat from Obaskluk, the top leaders of the world government ordered Marines to immediately launch a buster call against Dressrosa and dispatch a fleet to destroy the Netherworld pirates. For the majesty of the world government, they must not be allowed to gain a foothold in the New World. We must recapture all the prisoners in Impel Down. Even if they are eliminated, we must not let the Netherworld pirates conquer them and grow stronger. Launch a buster call to Dressrosa? Sengoku's eyelids twitched. His face was a little dark, and he clenched his fists tightly. He couldn't help it anymore, so he slammed the desk in front of him hard. Those bastards. Are they kidding me? Boom. Chapter 204, Target, Wano. The second half of New World. Over a certain sea area, a giant cyan dragon was flying towards the first half of New World at an astonishing speed. A black pteranodon fluttered its wings next to the dragon and reported, our undercover agent stationed at Dressrosa has received news that the Don Quixote family has been defeated. The batch of arms that we entrusted the Don Quixote family to export all fell into the hands of the Netherworld pirates. What? Kaido, who transformed into a blue dragon, was shocked and furious. Damn it, that useless guy Joker. That's 3 months of supplies that we have accumulated. Then, Mr. Kaido, should we go directly to Dressrosa next? King asked for instructions there. Of course we would go there. Kaido has an extremely ferocious expression. I want to meet that brat Luke for a while now. I hope his strength is really as strong as the rumors say, and he can make me happy. Whoa rah 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 rah. Hearing this, King had no intention of dissuading him. Because, in his mind, Kaido is the strongest pirate in this world. Even though Kaido was defeated several times before, he has now surpassed those powerful enemies in the past and has become the strongest creature on land, sea, and air. Needless to say, Big Mom. A woman who is addicted to delicious food and only hides in Tato land to give birth to children and entertain herself by playing house games. Okaku, who controls the Hikinozu. He is just a short-sighted guy who has lost his morale. There is no way to compare them with Kaido. As for Whitebeard? Although he's recognized as the strongest man in the world. However, the former king of the sea is old, after all. Relatively speaking, the tremor fruit, which is said to be able to destroy the world, doesn't scare anyone anymore. At this time, the first half of New World, Dressrosa, in a somewhat hidden and extremely large underground port. Luke-sama, we made a lot of money this time. Such a large amount of arms is enough to launch several large-scale wars. TSK, that guy Doflamingo is truly an intermediary in the underworld. Inside the huge warehouses, boxes of arms and ammunition were densely packed and piled up like mountains. They are lined up there, packed to the brim. Everyone in the Netherworld pirates looked at these weapons, and their eyes couldn't help but shine. These weapons are probably produced by beast pirates, right? Robin looked at Luke and whispered with concern, "We killed Doflamingo, who worked closely with beast pirates. I'm afraid Kaido will not let us go easily." "It doesn't matter, we will face each other sooner or later anyway." Luke crossed his arms and said with a faint smile, "Perhaps the strongest creature in the sea, land, and air will be on his way here when he hears that we attack the Dressrosa." He wasn't worried at all. In other words, he has already been mentally prepared for this. Even against a monster like Kaido, he has nothing to fear. Shiryu. Move all these weapons back to the thriller bark. Luke issued orders directly to Shiryu. Although the Shadowkin army and zombie army can also act as coolies. But after all, it is not as convenient as Shiryu's devil fruit ability. They can easily save time and energy. "Don't worry, leave it to me." Shiryu bit his cigar and nodded with a smile. His right hand pressed directly on the ammunition box and activated his float fruits ability. Because these boxes of ammunition were in touch with each other, there was no need to touch them individually. Whoosh! Boxes of arms and ammunition floated directly into the air. As if they had a sense of life, they flew out of the port one after another. Wahahaha, Luke-sama, this time, we arrested thousands of members of the Don Quixote family alone. Burgess walked in from the outside, laughed a little excitedly, and said, "The Shadowkin army under our command can be further strengthened." "Well, although the strength is a bit lacking, overall, it is better than nothing." Luke nodded. This sea is too big if he wants the Shadowkin army to spread to the entire world and become truly pervasive. The required number of Shadowkin army, let alone tens of thousands, even 1 million, is far from enough. However, at present, besides looking for devil fruit and exploring new island coordinates, intelligence collection is mainly focused on major routes such as Twin Cape, Whiskey Peak, Alabasta, Jaya Island, Water 7, Sabati Archipelago, Fishman Island, etc. The Shadowkin monitors every move on these routes. At this time, on the ground, a black shadow emerged and reported to Luke, "Luke-sama, I have found the location of Wano." "Oh?" Luke smiled, "Finally found it? Wano?" Everyone present was stunned. "Isn't this the lair of the beast's pirates?" "Next, I'm going to Wano. I'll let you take charge of the things here." Luke stretched his muscles and said directly to Robin, "If you need help, you can ask Violet." Over at Wano, there are several users with mythical zone fruit. Not counting other devil fruit users, how could he not be tempted? After procrastinating for so long, it's time to go over there to harvest. If he's lucky, he might be able to abduct a princess and bring her back. However, the wealth of the Don Quixote family, which has been accumulated over the years, we can only leave 10% at Dressrosa at most. He didn't care at all what would become of Dressrosa. If it weren't for Violet, his woman who would become the queen of this country so she could play queen play from time to time. Not a single penny would be left to the Riku royal family. "Understood, I will handle it properly." Robin smiled and nodded. After a few days, she and Violet got along pretty well, however, when it comes to matters of principle, she naturally does not give in. The target of the Netherworld pirates has never been a big pirate or marine headquarters. But it is a behemoth with a profound foundation, the world government. Next, they would expand and develop rapidly in the shortest possible time. At that time, it must have been like a bottomless pit, and no amount of money was enough to invest. Chapter 205, 3 Devil Fruit. Ding. 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 The second half of the New World. Wano Country, the flower capital. In the luxuriously decorated Shogun's mansion, accompanied by the sound of the shamisen, Groups of geishas in kimonos were dancing around the tall, ugly shogun Kurizumi Orochi, who was wearing gorgeous clothes and looked like a monkey in a crown. At this time, Orochi was happily drinking there while holding two beautiful geishas in his arms. He was so happy that he didn't want to leave. Buzz, suddenly, an invisible wave swept over. One geisha after another rolled their eyes and fainted. This is Conqueror's Haki? Who is it? Kurizumi Orochi was shaking, barely staying awake, and looked a little horrified. Come here, protect the shogun. Whoosh. Damn it. What's going on? Orochi-sama, we can't control ourselves. Don't. Figures appeared in the hall one after another. However, these Orochi Unowabanshushu, who were Kurizumi Orochi's personal guards, were screaming in fear. Then, they all waved their weapons and attacked Kurizumi Orochi. You. Kurizumi Orochi's expression changed drastically, and he was completely shocked. He didn't expect that his subordinates would betray him. Damn it. Unwilling to sit still and wait to die, he turned into a hideous 8-headed serpent and resisted vigorously. However, he was mediocre in strength but had a powerful devil fruit ability. 7 heads were ruthlessly cut off soon, and blood dyed the ground red. Damn it, Orochi-sama. Looking at Orochi, who had lost his breath of life. The leader of the Orochi Unowabanshu, Fukurikaju, was covered in blood, full of panic and anger. He gritted his teeth and shouted loudly, "Who is it? The person is not dead yet, why are you in a hurry?" In a shadow, Luke's tall figure slowly emerged. Then the eyes of the Orochi Unowabanshu presenter widened. "Who are you?" Swish. Luke's face was calm. Without any nonsense, he waved his right hand unceremoniously. Then, thin and sharp black shadows cut out like lightning. Kai. Ah! A ninja from the Orochi Unowabanshushu let out a scream. He was cut off mercilessly and fell into a pool of blood. After cutting off 7 heads. He should have 1 more life, right? Looking at the bloody snake heads rolling down and the bloody corpse. Luke sneered. A sharp shadow string popped out and instantly bound the last head. It slowly tightens, leaving a shocking blood mark. Ah! Orochi, who was pretending to be dead, suddenly showed pain on his face and struggled. Then he looked at Luke in front of him and screamed in fear, "No, don't kill me, I can give you a lot of money, as much as you want. Besides, I am a partner of the beast pirates. If I die, Kaido will not let you go." Kaido? Humphrey. Luke sneered contemptuously. Looking at the bloody and terrified Kurizumi Orochi, the snake fruit model, Yamata no Orochi was eaten by a bastard like you, what a waste. The next moment, without waiting for Orochi's response, a sharp pain came, and the black shadow string cut off his head ruthlessly. Then, his ugly head rolled to the ground, and he fell into endless darkness. Reclaim his power. At this moment, Luke stomped his feet, and a bloated figure emerged from the shadows. His face was hideous, and his whole body was black, but his figure was almost the same as Wapol. Yes, Luke-sama. Shadow Wapol opened his bloody mouth and swallowed Orochi's body. Not long after, he spits out Orochi's bloody body and fruit with 8 triangular stems and leaves, a pineapple-like appearance, and scaly spiral veins. Then he picked it up and handed it over to Luke. The first one. To the next target. Luke didn't even look at the body of the Orochi, then suddenly flicked his right hand. Have you seen enough? Kai. The ceiling was cut directly, and a bloated figure fell down. Swoosh. Then black silk threads quickly wrapped around it, tying it up. Goo. Who are you? The figure was filled with fear and tried to struggle. Luke looked at the bloated and fat female ninja in front of him and said lightly, "I will accept the ripe fruit with pleasure." Kai. He stretched out his right hand and clenched it. The sharp shadow string directly cut off the throat of the little ninja, and a lot of blood splashed out. Seeing this, Shadow Wapol smiled strangely and stepped forward. He swallowed the corpse in front of him and quickly recovered the ripe fruit. The second one. Luke took the 2 devil fruits that had just been recovered and sank into the shadows. Soon after, he left. Ah! Orochi-sama, accompanied by a scream, the maid who had just brought the dishes collapsed to the ground with a face full of horror. She was frightened to death by the horrifying scene in front of her. Less than half an hour. At the Oyagai Bridge. Luke didn't care at all about the fact that he killed Kurizumi Orochi, the shogun of Wano country, and what kind of chaos it would cause as he searched for his next target. Damn. A tall monk with a terrifying face holding a naginata was entangled by a large number of shadow strings and struggled painfully there. At this moment, he looked at the figure in front of him with some horror. Onimaru never thought after disguising himself as a monk to rob the passing samurai here, wanting to collect swords and prepare for the Kozuki family to defeat Kaido in the future. He actually encountered such a terrifying existence. As soon as the person in front of him came, he subdued him directly. He had no power to resist at all. TSK, what a lucky guy. An ordinary fox actually obtained the human fruit model, Anudo. Luke looked at Hanamaru expressionlessly. He had no intention of subduing the other party. He raised his right hand and clenched his 5 fingers. Sorry, I'll borrow your devil fruit for a while. Ah! Hanamaru screamed. Blood kept oozing out of his body. Finally, he lost his breath. Then, his body shrank at a speed visible to the naked eye, and he turned into a white fox. Crack! A bloated black shadow emerged from the shadow and swallowed the bloody fox in one gulp. Soon, Luke had another strange devil fruit in his hand. The third one. Unexpectedly, it went smoothly. Weighing the devil fruit that he had just recovered, Luke smiled happily. Chapter 206, So Conflict Luke-sama, I found it. In an uninhabited forest near the Imagasa village, a hideous human-shaped shadow emerged from the shadow and handed a fruit that looked like a glutinous ball to Luke. Primsi millet fruit? Well done. Luke nodded with satisfaction. According to the information in his memory, when he came to Wano country, he had already sent Shadowkin to look for this devil fruit near the Imagasa village. Although it cannot directly enhance the user's personal combat power, it can tame those beasts, even those with artificial devil fruit ability. Fortunately, he was lucky and succeeded. He just doesn't know if it will have any effect on Rob Lucci's artificial mythical zone fruit. After all, the artificial devil fruit developed by Vegapunk is undoubtedly very perfect, even infinitely close to the original. It is still very different from the failed product Smile developed by Caesar Clown in the original trajectory. Who are you? Luke's arrival in front of a simple wooden house caught the attention of the owner of the wooden house. The figure was wearing wooden clogs, a tiny mask, and wings at his back. At this time, he looked at Luke in surprise. Upon noticing Luke's clothes are completely different from the clothes of Wano country, Kazuki Sukiyaki couldn't help but show some vigilance. As a former shogun of Wano country, after the death of his son Kazuki Oden, he escaped from the captivity of Kurizumi Orochi by chance and lived here incognito under the pseudonym of Tengayama Hitetsu. Kazuki Sukiyaki? Luke crossed his arms and looked at the other party. You recognize the wrong person, I am Tengayama Hitetsu. Kazuki Sukiyaki's pupils shrank sharply. His body froze, and his back was soaked with cold sweat. He pretended to be fine and said, Kazuki Sukiyaki, the culprit who was wanted by Kurizumi Orochi and harmed Wano country in the past, has already died. I didn't come here to watch you act. Luke glanced at him and said lightly, Leave Inma, aim no Haba Hidden Mist Village, and Nidai Kaitetsu to me. Although I don't know why you think I am the Sinar Kazuki Sukiyaki. Kazuki Sukiyaki's expression changed, and he said with a stiff face, Nidai Kaitetsu, this ominous demon sword is indeed here, but Inma and aim no Haba Hidden Mist Village are not here. Right? Luke smiled. The next moment, in Kazuki Sukiyaki's horrified eyes, he suddenly found that he could not move at all, making sweat profusely. And his shadow was actually pulled up from the ground by the mysterious figure in front of him. Crack. Under Kazuki Sukiyaki's horrified eyes, Luke directly cut off the struggling shadow, making Sukiyaki's eyes roll back, and he fainted air. Swish. Luke absorbed the shadow into his body. After investigating the memory of Kazuki Sukiyaki, Luke directly determined the whereabouts of Inma and aim no Habakyuri. From the bottom of the wooden house, he dug out a rectangular wooden box. After opening it, 2 gorgeous swords appeared in front of his eyes. Clang. Clang. After grabbing 2 famous swords, he pulled them out one after another. The first one, the scabbard, and the handle are both white. The blade reflected a cold light, making it appear extremely fascinating. And the other famous sword is purple. After he pulled it out, it exuded an extremely strange breath that made people's scalp numb. At the same time, it also directly tries to influence Luke's will. Humphrey. Luke snorted coldly. His eyes turned stern, and his extremely powerful conqueror haki burst out. The next second, he slashed towards the distance. Swish. Boom. The dazzling flying slash directly tore the ground apart. It pierced through the forest in front of him like rotten wood and extended straight to the sea, leaving an exaggerated mark in the ground. Clang. On the sea, the huge trench took a long time to recover. You want to influence me? Luke's eyes were full of disdain, and he sheathed the shaking Inma. He brought it and the aim no Haba Hidden Mist Village to the wooden house. Then he saw a sword with an extraordinary appearance hanging on the wall. It was the Nidai Kaitetsu. 3 swords of the 21 great grade swords, not bad. Although Luke did not specialize in swordsmanship. But collecting these famous swords is one of his 3 hobbies. And even if he doesn't use them himself, he can use them to reward his subordinates. On an uninhabited coast at Onigashima, a beautiful figure with white hair, red horns, and a pretty face was sitting on the ground alone while hugging her legs. She was wearing a loose kimono with a rope tied around her waist. Next to her, there was a mace without barbs and a hideous mask. Surprisingly, she was wearing a pair of handcuffs on both hands. At this time, her big eyes stared at the afterglow of the sunset, showing a desire for the sea. Who is it? Suddenly, Yamato seemed to have sensed something. She grabbed the mace and stood up, then looked at the figure emerging from the shadow with sharp eyes. Her eyes were unkind and full of vigilance. Who are you? Don't be nervous, I have no ill intentions. Luke looked at Yamato in front of him and said with a smile, me and Kaido are enemies. You and Kaido are enemies? Yamato looked at the figure in front of her in surprise. She couldn't help but feel a strong desire to fight and was about to swing her mace and hit Luke fiercely. Swish. But at this time, Luke's 5 fingers bent slightly. Huh? My body can't move. Yamato, who was about to swing her arm, froze there, horrified. A strange shadow had quietly swept over her since she didn't know when. She was tightly bound and couldn't move. She stared at Luke in front of her angrily while struggling desperately. What's going on? Damn. Is it you who did it? Don't struggle in vain. Luke smiled and sat down, saying indifferently, with your current strength, you can't break free. Yamato is now just 21 years old. Even though she inherited Kaido's blood, making her gifted and having strength far beyond her peers. But she was wearing sea prism stone handcuffs, and the strength that she can exert is limited. In front of Luke, there is no threat at all. Who are you? What do you want to do by breaking into Onigashima? Yamato was full of stubbornness and struggled hard. But she couldn't break free from the restraints and could only glare at Luke, too despicable. Let me go if you dare. My name is Obask Luke. Luke shrugged and said to Yamato with a smile, your name is Yamato, right? Do you want to go out with me? I've heard about your story. After he said that, he pointed to the sea prism stone handcuffs on Yamato's hands, but no normal parent would ever use this thing to lock up their children and almost kill them again and again. As for whether Kaido really doesn't care about Yamato's life or death or whether there is any father-daughter relationship in his heart, this has nothing to do with Luke. Anyway, he is here to steal Yamato. First, he needs to sow conflict between them. Asshole. Are you here to laugh at me? Yamato didn't appreciate it and stared at Luke fiercely. She gritted her teeth and said angrily, do you think I don't want to leave here? This damn handcuff is filled with explosives. Once I leave, it will explode. Well, this thing is really troublesome. Luke smiled slightly and raised his right hand. A materialized shadow vine flew over. Kaka. Under Yamato's shocked eyes, the dark shadow vines drilled directly into the keyhole and easily unlocked the sea prism stone handcuffs that had imprisoned her for more than 10 years and deprived her of her freedom. Moreover, it was thrown directly into the sea. Boom. Chapter 207, It's Just a Trick. Ah. It exploded? The sea surged under the explosion. Looking at the sea prism stone handcuffs that were thrown onto the sea and exploded in the blink of an eye, Yamato was stunned, and she cursed bitterly, damn, old man, those handcuffs actually exploded. Do you really want to kill me? She had almost no affection for her father under his ruthless education, and at this moment, she was completely disappointed. She was filled with tears and looked sad. With her fists tightly clenched and the mace in her hand raised high, Yamato gritted her teeth and said, damn, old man, from today on, we are no longer father and son. What's going on? The explosion came from over there. Quick, there's an intruder. Don't let him get away. The powerful explosion startled the beast pirates on Onigashima. Then, they rushed over continuously with swords, guns, and cannons in their hands. At this moment, Luke did not hide his figure at all, making his figure and Yamato appear clearly in front of everyone. Everyone pays attention. There is an intruder. That's Obask Luke. In the monitoring room, a cadre from the beast pirates directly broadcast loudly. For a time, the entire Onigashima were shaken. Countless pirates were shocked, and some people couldn't believe it. What? What happened? I remember we just received news that he attacked Dressrosa, right? Why is this guy here? In the skeleton building at Onigashima, the Tobirapo, including Huzu, Sasaki, and Black Maria, who were drinking there, were all shocked. No one expected that Obask Luke, who was still in Dressrosa, would suddenly appear in Onigashima. I don't know, but it's definitely him. At this time, a girl hurriedly walked in to report, Yamato-sama and Obask Luke are together. Moreover, Yamato-sama has unlocked the sea prism stone handcuffs. This is going to be troublesome. Black Maria broke out in a cold sweat. At this moment, Kaido and the three calamities are not here, while Obask Luke happens to invade Onigashima. It's just right, I really want to see if he is really as powerful as the rumors say. Sasaki bared his teeth and stood up. There was a fighting spirit in his eyes, and he was eager to try. Don't let him get too arrogant, otherwise when Kaido-sama comes back, we will be punished. We don't clearly know that guy's strength. Whose face was uncertain. No matter who it is, if they dare to come to Onigashima to cause trouble, they will die. A tall girl with long blue hair, wide horns, and a mask, whose face could not be seen clearly, hummed, "This is the headquarters of the Beast Pirates. I will not let him go." Ulti, who is already one of the Tobirapo at a young age, is full of fighting spirit. In her hand, she also held a golden club with a spherical end. Then she went straight to a 13 or 14-year-old boy and told him, "Page 1, you hide here and don't go out." After she said that, she didn't wait for her brother to respond and run out directly. Ah, little Ulti is really impatient. Black Maria smiled. Without any delay, she, who's who, Sasaki, and others all followed behind. Although they didn't know what was going on. But no matter what, the enemy had already entered the lair. If they pretended not to see it because they were afraid of Obask Luke, Kaido would not forgive them when he came back. Bang. Bang. Yamato-sama, I'm sorry. Kaido-sama has ordered that you can't leave this island. Come on. We must stop her. Don't let Yamato-sama run away. Yamato swiftly swung her mace, easily knocking members of the Beast Pirates, who were waving swords and rushing up to try to stop her from escaping. Damn it, don't block my way. Luke looked relaxed while sitting on a boulder nearby. He watches Yamato knock down the minions of the Beast Pirates. He had no intention of taking action and was not in a hurry to take her away. You are the one who unlocked Yamato-sama's sea prism stone handcuffs, right? A cadre of the Beast Pirates rushed up, and he slashed at Luke fiercely. Go to hell. Puppet shadow string. Luke didn't even raise his head. Swish. Black shadows surged in the palm of his hand, and shadow strings shot out one after another. It was not just this cadre of the Beast's pirates. A large number of fine and sharp black shadow strings that were almost invisible to the naked eye connect to the shadows of a large number of pirates present here. Bang. 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 Damn it, my body is out of control. Damn it, what kind of devil fruit ability is this? Everyone get out of the way. Damn it. Ah. Ah. For a while, screams, shouts, gunfire, and swords clashing continued. A large number of pirates from the Beast's pirates fought together. So powerful. When Yamato saw this, she was surprised. After knocking a pirate away, she came over with a mace and looked at the fine shadow strings from Luke's hand in disbelief. What kind of devil fruit ability is this? Just now, the other party also used this method to easily control herself. She tried her best but couldn't break free. It's just a trick. I'm the devil fruit user of the shadow fruit. Luke smiled slightly. He has received relevant information from the Shadowkins. He learned that Kaido and Jin had gone to the first half of the New World to find him. So, he didn't hide his whereabouts. As for whether Kaido would turn around and run back after receiving the report, he didn't care at all. However, if Kaido rushed back at this time, he could imagine how angry and frustrated the Governor-General of Beast Pirate would be at that time. It's also quite interesting. Chapter 208, You are still the same, damn it. You bastard. At this time, Ulti rushed over with a sharp spiked, yellow, golden morning star-like club and instantly turned into a human beast form. Then she waved her golden club and smashed it towards Luke fiercely. Thunderbagwa. But Yamato on the side was faster. She rushed out like lightning, and the mace in her hand crushed the atmosphere as it swept forward like lightning. Bang. In an instant, Ulti, who was caught off guard, let out a scream while her whole body was blown away and rolled several times awkwardly on the ground. Ulti. Sasaki, who followed closely behind, had a drastic change of expression. He looked at Luke's and showed unspeakable fear, then he shifted his gaze to Yamato and asked loudly with a bad look, Yamato-sama, do you know what you are doing? Obask Luke is the enemy of the Beast Pirates. Don't get me wrong, I am not in the same group with you. Yamato carried the mace, held her head high, and said, in addition, Luke is my savior. She was just in her early 20s. That proud size was indeed quite important, except for her strength, which was still a little weak. Her figure was no worse than a few years later. Is there something wrong with your brain? Sasaki's face darkened, and then he glared at Yamato fiercely. Stop it. It's fine that everyone is more accommodating to you for the sake of Kaido-sama. But now is not the time to play around. No matter what you say, I must leave here with Luke today. Yamato raised her mace and said loudly and decisively, and Kaido, that bastard is no longer my father. From now on, I will have nothing to do with you, Beast Pirates. From the moment she saw the sea prism stone handcuffs explode. In her mind, Kaido is no longer her father. The only trace of family affection has completely dissipated with the violent explosion. In the past, Yamato always thought that the other party was just scaring her. After all, she was his biological daughter. But it is obvious that Kaido, that cold-blooded and ruthless guy, really did not treat her as his child. She was extremely grateful to Luke for untying the sea prism stone handcuffs for her and didn't care whether Luke was an enemy of the beast pirates. She subconsciously believed him and wanted to follow him. As for what happened next, they will talk about it after they leave here. Yamato has had enough of being imprisoned and losing her freedom. She has been trapped on this island for more than 10 years and almost suffocated to death. Since you insist on doing it your own way, I can only take you down and hand you over to Kaido-sama. Sasaki no longer hesitated. He ran forward and slashed at Yamato with his sword. King! Sparks flew everywhere, and the mace easily blocked Sasaki's attack. Yamato looked firm and said resolutely, I said I have nothing to do with that bastard Kaido anymore. No matter how rebellious you are, there must be a limit. At this time, Sasaki's already bloated body kept expanding as he turned into human beast form. The next moment, he ruthlessly swung his sword and attacked extremely swiftly. Damn it, Yamato. At the side, Ulti climbed up from the ground, her white mask was stained with some blood, she was caught off guard and was hit by Yamato's thunderbagua head-on. She stared at Yamato, who was fighting with Sasaki fiercely and was indescribably angry. Are you crazy? She never thought that Yamato would turn against her at this time. If it weren't for her devil fruit, she would have already lost her fighting ability. When she thought of this, Ulti became extremely furious. Bang! At this moment, she was so angry that she ignored Luke beside Yamato and rushed out like lightning. She directly raised the golden club and smashed it towards Yamato without hesitation. Clang! Bang! For a moment, the sound of metal clashing echoed continuously. 3 figures were fighting fiercely there. No matter what, Ulti and Sasaki were both members of the Tobirapo. Now, Yamato's 3 types of haki need to be improved, and even the technique of Conqueror Haki Entanglement has not been mastered. Facing Ulti and Sasaki, who have ancient zone fruit and have both entered the human beast form, greatly increasing their combat power as they besiege her with all their strength. Although she did not lose, in a short period of time, she also couldn't easily gain the upper hand. Without using the devil fruit ability, it is obviously not possible to defeat the opponent swiftly. Storm leg. At this moment, a fierce wind blade flew fiercely towards Luke. Be careful. Yamato's expression changed greatly. But she was held back by Ulti and Sasaki and could only warn Luke. However, Luke, who was sitting there, looked extremely relaxed. It seemed that he didn't notice it or was too stunned. Facing the sudden attack, he didn't dodge or block it at all. Kai. The sharp, crescent-shaped wind blade penetrates and tears his body apart. It continued to move forward, cutting through the reef in the distance. Boom. The sea surface exploded directly, and a huge reef was easily cut open. At the same time, Luke's upper half slid down to the ground. Luke. Yamato was shocked. She stared blankly at the figure that was cut in half and didn't notice that Luke, who was cut in half, didn't bleed even a single drop of blood. Did it kill him? Even Sasaki and the pirates around couldn't help but stare with wide eyes. They never expected that the other party would not dodge or defend at all. After all, he had fought with the hero of the Marines, Garp, and severely injured him, and even retreated unscathed. He also quietly led people to invade the Impel Down, emptied the entire Impel Down, and was offered a bounty of 2.2 billion belly. It's impossible to be so weak, right? But the next moment, everyone's pupils shrank sharply. In their somewhat horrified eyes, black shadows like silk surged. Swish. Luke, who was cut in half by the swift crescent moon, recovered at speed visible to the naked eye. Then he turned his head to look at the black figure who was running towards him with the moon step. Who's who? You are still the same. Chapter 209, Future Territory Instant Transmission. Finger gun, spot. In the blink of an eye, a tall black shadow rushed over. While in human beast form, whose sharp claws were wrapped with armament haki, and like dense bullets, they kept piercing Luke's entire body at an astonishing speed. But there was no blood at all. Logia fruit user? No. Seeing this, whose eyes shrank sharply, and his expression changed. Ho! At this moment, a piercing sound reverberates. Whose right foot wrapped with armament haki tore through the atmosphere and swept across. Swish! There was no touch of hitting a solid object at all, and it passed through Luke's body. Seeing this, who retreated immediately. Then he stared at Luke, who was unharmed, full of vigilance with stern eyes. You! What's going on? The attack passes through? Is he a Logia devil fruit user? No, who just used armament haki. Is it another weird devil fruit user? It's not just who, Everyone subconsciously stopped their action and paid attention to Luke in surprise. Meanwhile, those from the Beast Pirates who heard the noise and rushed over continuously could not believe the scene in front of their eyes. Haha. As Luke chuckled, black shadows surged around him, and his torn body recovered directly. Luke looked at Huzu, who was full of caution and vigilance, and said with a smile, "I heard that you became a Dobarapo. Aren't you a little complacent? Humphrey, you are still as arrogant as ever, looking down on everyone." Huzu snorted coldly while staring at Luke with a bad look. He was a little doubtful. "I heard that you just led people to attack Dressrosa. Why are you here?" Black Maria, who is in a gorgeous kimono, walked over with a smile while holding the pipe, exhaling smoke, asked lightly. "And, not long ago, we received news that the shogun of Wano country, Kurizumi Orochi, was killed. Did you do it, Mr. Luke?" She looked at Luke sitting there, and then her beautiful eyes lit up. "I didn't expect that the real person would be more handsome than the one in the bounty. You're exactly my type." After she spoke, she licked her red lips lightly and then threw a coquettish look at Luke. "What?" Yamato was shocked and looked at Luke in disbelief. "Kurizumi Orochi was killed? Did you do it, Luke? He's just a piece of trash. It would be easy for you to kill him, right?" Luke said calmly. "Is there any need to be so surprised?" "That's true, but Kaido is standing behind him." Yamato was stunned. She immediately held the mace tightly in her hand. Her pretty face was full of dejection, and then she lowered her head and said, "Although I really want to save the people of Wano country, the key is to defeat that monster, Kaido." Over the years, she has challenged Kaido countless times, and every time, she was beaten black and blue. She almost died several times and lay down for several days before she barely regained consciousness. There was no hope of defeating that monster. "Oh, Bask Luke, Kurizumi Orochi is a partner of our Beast's pirates. Aren't you afraid of angering Kaido by doing this?" Huzu looked directly at Luke and asked in a deep voice. "Kaido? Do you think I'm afraid of angering him?" Luke stood up and smiled. "I heard that he has gone to Dressrosa to find me, right?" He looked around at the huge skeleton building and at the Tobarapo, including Ulti, Haz, Sasaki, Black Maria, etc. "Don't be so nervous. I just came here to take Yamato away today and inspect the future territory of the Netherworld pirates." "What do you mean?" "What? Arrogant. Who do you think you are? Just relying on the fact that Kaido-sama is not here. Don't be so arrogant, bastard." Hearing this, everyone in the Beast Pirates glared at Luke and cursed. If they had not been a little afraid of the other party's strength and ability, they would have rushed up to fight with the other party immediately. "Ha ha ha." Luke chuckled. He opened his arms and laughed loudly. But the next moment, a terrifying red light flashed in his eyes. Buzz, in an instant, an unparalleled conqueror haki, like an amazing hurricane, swept out from Luke. Boom. The sea was surging while the whole island was shaking violently. The strong wind swept, and countless rocks and plants flew. Even the members of the Beast Pirates were a little unsteady and were directly thrown out. Plop. 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 One by one, the members of the Beast Pirates couldn't bear this extremely powerful and terrible pressure at all. They staggered back, and their eyes turned white, then they foamed at their mouth and fainted directly. What? What happened? I almost lost consciousness. In the blink of an eye, at the entire Onigashima, among the members of the Beast Pirates who stayed here, only Tobirapo and a few other cadres were able to maintain consciousness and stand. There were also a few members of the Beast Pirates who had a strong will and were barely able to maintain their consciousness, but they collapsed on the ground weakly, unable to stand up. This exaggerated conqueror haki. Such a terrifying conqueror haki, it's like facing Kaido-sama. This monster is so powerful. For a moment, the whole audience was silent. Ulti, Sasaki, Huzu, Black Maria, and others all looked at Luke in horror and were overwhelmed by the extremely terrifying momentum. They couldn't breathe and sweated profusely. They felt extreme horror and couldn't stop trembling. A person's reputation is like a tree's shadow. At this moment, they realized how naive their original thoughts were and how strong the person in front of them who could compete with Garp the Fist and retreat after injuring him. Looking at the Obask Luke, who looked serious and unreservedly released his conqueror haki, it was like facing Kaido himself. Luke is so strong. Yamato stared at Luke in shock. She knew Luke should be very strong, but she didn't expect it to be so exaggerated. This unbelievably strong conqueror haki was no less than that of her father. Chapter 210, a good show is about to start. Luke. Is this your real strength? You are so strong. On the coast, Yamato ran over excitedly while clenching her fists and looking at Luke with shining eyes, just as strong as my bastard father. She didn't expect it. Recalling the experience before, she couldn't even help but tremble when she faced such a strong conqueror haki. It made Yamato feel like she was facing her bastard father. Really? Luke smiled lightly. Without the previous ostentatious and terrifying momentum, he returned to his usual calmness. He smiled directly at Yamato and asked, "Do you want to leave with me?" "Yes, I want to leave with you, take me away." Yamato nodded like a chicken pecking at rice. She dreams of seeing the outside world. Naturally, she made up her mind to leave with this man. As for liberating Wano country, she is still too weak now. She can't beat Kaido at all. Okay, bear with it. Don't resist. Luke nodded. Under his feet, a large number of black shadows surged, and they completely submerged the surprised Yamato. Under the incredible gaze of the beast pirates, he took her into the shadows at a speed visible to the naked eye. "I'll take Yamato away. Tell Kaido not to run around. I'll wait for him in Dressrosa." Before leaving, he glanced at Ulti, Who's Who, Sasaki, and other Tobirapo who were standing there and dared not move. Finally, his eyes stayed on Black Maria for a moment. TSK, he has to say that she's really attractive. Huh. Plop. After a long time, on the Onigashima. Watching Obaskluk and Yamato disappear in a rather weird way, the Tobirapo, who were frozen there and dared not move, and the other cadre all collapsed on the ground while sweating profusely. "I keep my life." Sasaki wiped his cold sweat. He felt ridiculous for his previous arrogance. Fortunately, he did not foolishly attack Obaskluk just now. Otherwise, if he angered such a monster, he would be killed directly. That guy is so powerful. Ulti panted slightly. If she hadn't seen it with her own eyes and experienced it personally, she would never have believed it. A guy who was only 1 or 2 years older than her at most was so strong to such an exaggerated degree. He could stand shoulder to shoulder with a monster like Kaido. CP9's strongest genius in 800 years, he has always been a monster that cannot be guessed by common sense. Who's Who had returned to human form, clenched his fists tightly and said bitterly. Looking at the wet ground under his feet, "Is it his sweat?" Once upon a time, he was full of arrogance and looked down on the other party. But now, he has to look up at the figure of that man. Just standing there can make him lose the will to fight. Too strong, I can't muster the will to fight. He and I are not in the same dimension at all. Black Maria panted slightly and sighed air. Then her beautiful eyes revealed a strange color while her beautiful face was flushed abnormally. She couldn't help but clamp her legs together, feeling her body and mind trembling. Such a strong, young, handsome man. Is exactly the perfect person she dreams of. Because she grew up in Wano country since she was a child, she was influenced by the customs and culture here, and her personality was a little strong. Black Maria, who was originally inclined to approach Kaido, couldn't help but change her mind. Originally, she didn't have such a bold idea. But Luke's admiring eyes before he left, although not explicit, gave her great confidence. Black Maria, who was extremely confident in her beauty, couldn't help but want to conquer Obaskluk. Equally powerful, younger, and more handsome while the other can be said to be ferocious and terrifying. Even Black Maria, who claims not to be obsessed with looks, couldn't help but make a choice subconsciously. But how can she attract the other party? Black Maria thought with some distress. "Maria, are you horny?" Ulti, who has returned to human form, put her hands on her waist and looked at Black Maria speechlessly, with a frown on her face. She clenched her pink fists, her eyes full of fierceness, and warned, "You are not going to betray Kaido-sama, are you? I tell you, don't dream, no one can defeat Kaido-sama." Ulti, who is angry, is really cute. Black Maria stepped forward and touched Ulti's head. She didn't care about the other party's rude and venomous tongue just now but teased the other party there. "Humphrey, don't give me that, I'm not a child." Suddenly, Ulti's pretty face flushed red, and she became a little angry. She angrily shook off Black Maria's hand, raised the golden morning star-like club, stared with eyes wide open, and protested fiercely, do you want to fight? Don't be anxious. Didn't Obaskluk just say that he would wait for Kaido-sama in Dressrosa? Black Maria smiled and said bluntly, "Can he lead the Netherworld pirates to gain a foothold in the New World?" I believe the answer will be revealed soon. Although she thought that Kaido could not be defeated by anyone. But maybe Obaskluk can really gain a foothold in the New World and become the new Emperor of the Sea. The other party is still so young, and his future potential is limitless. Even if he really loses to the Governor-General, it is not shameful. She believes that such a monster will not be defeated so easily. That would definitely lose. Ulti said confidently. She firmly believes that Kaido is invincible. No one can defeat the strongest creature on land, sea, and air. Even if Obaskluk is stronger, he can't defeat Kaido. Indeed. Hearing this, Sasaki, Who's Who, and others on the side couldn't help but cheer up. if Obaskluk does not retreat and really prepares to fight the Governor-General head-on. This is a peak battle that is destined to attract worldwide attention and affect the New World and even the entire world. Hey, is a good show about to start? Chapter 211, Lost Journal. Wow. On the rooftop of the castle in King's Plateaus, Luke brought Yamato here directly. Looking at the town, which was partially ruined but generally prosperous, her eyes couldn't help but widen, and she was full of excitement. Is this the outside world? Well, this is the country located in the first half of the New World, Dressrosa. Luke folded his arms and chuckled. Dressrosa? Yamato's eyes lit up, and she said excitedly, I know, it's written in Odin's journal. As she said that, she fumbled around in her arms, trying to take out Odin's journal she picked up when she was a child to show Luke. But the next moment, her expression changed drastically, and she broke out in a cold sweat and was full of panic. How could this happen? She shouted helplessly, where is my journal? Journal? What journal? Luke's face was full of confusion, but he laughed secretly in his heart. As early as when he brought Yamato back. Odin's journal, which she hid in her arms, had been quietly destroyed by him. But this girl was too deeply poisoned, and it might not be so easy to correct her thoughts. Kazuki Odin's journal. Yamato was sweating profusely. She searched her whole body for a while, it was still there in the morning. What journal do you carry with you? Did you lose it in the battle with Ulti and Sasaki just now? Luke pretended to be surprised. I will go back and help you find it later. Thank you, Luke. Yamato grabbed Luke's hand, full of gratitude and sincerity. You must help me find it, it is very important to me. I know, don't worry. Luke's eyes were gentle, and then he patted her head and comforted her there. Luke. At this time, Robin, Nami, Rachel, Perona, and other girls came up the stairs. They all looked at Yamato beside him with some surprise. Seeing her dressed in a kimono, wearing wooden clogs, and carrying a mace, they looked at her weirdly. It looked a bit weird. Come, let me introduce her. Luke nodded to Robin and others, pointed at Yamato, and said with a smile, she is Kaido's daughter, Yamato. What? Kaido's daughter? Listening to Luke's introduction, everyone's eyes couldn't help but widen, and they looked at Yamato in disbelief. No one thought that Luke would bring Kaido's daughter back. And from the looks of it, it doesn't look like she was kidnapped at all, nor does it look like she was controlled by Luke's ability. Hello. I'm Yamato, please advise me. Without caring about the journal anymore, Yamato looked at the girls and introduced herself openly and then added, but I'm a man, and my dream is to become Kazuki Odin. Also, I have nothing to do with Kaido, that bastard. Man? For a moment, Robin, Rachel, Perona, and other girls looked at Luke strangely. Yes, because Kazuki Odin is a man, I also want to be a man like him. Yamato patted her chest and said with her head held high. The girls. They didn't know who Kazuki Odin was at all. Don't worry, she is a woman, but she has lived with the beast pirates since she was a child, and there are people like Kaido there. So, she has a little gender identity disorder. Luke rolled his eyes, knocked on Yamato's head, and said helplessly, as for her relationship with Kaido, it's more complicated. He then briefly introduced the situation between Kaido and Yamato. The girls were stunned, and some couldn't believe it. Are there such parents in the world? They couldn't help but feel sympathy for Yamato. There was less distance and more intimacy. Nami, you guys take Yamato out for a walk. Luke smiled and said, she was raised in Wano country since she was a child, and later, she was placed at the headquarters of the beast pirates, Onigashima. She hasn't seen the outside world yet. Yes, Luke-sama. Nami clenched her fist and said excitedly, leave it to me. Yamato, go with everyone first, I will help you find the journal later. Luke turned his head, touched Yamato's head, and said with a smile. Odin's journal. Won't definitely be found. But on the thriller bark, there are dozens of sailing journals left by various pirates and explorers. Should he use those things? Odin successively boarded the ships of the Whitebeard pirates and the Roger pirates and followed them to explore. What Kazuki Odin saw and heard indeed greatly exceeded those ordinary adventurers. Maybe it is not as exciting as Odin's journal, but it is better in quantity. At least it can broaden her horizons, let her know more about the world, and appreciate the wonders of the sea. It is a long-term project to change Yamato's brainwashed mind by Odin's journal. Really? That's great. I'll leave it to you, Luke. Yamato smiled, and then she looked at the town outside with shining eyes. She was already impatient and jumped down from the rooftop excitedly. Wait for me, Yamato. When Nami, Nojiko, Perona, and other women saw this, they chased after her. This guy. Robin was a little speechless. But considering that the other party saw the outside world for the first time, making her so excited, she could understand. Don't look at her impetuous appearance, but she has inherited Kaido's blood and has good strength and amazing potential. Looking at the figure of Yamato, who was walking away on the king's plateau below, Luke folded his arms and said with a smile, except for the strong men in the zombie army and the Shadowkin army, the only one who can firmly suppress her in the Netherworld pirates is probably Shiryu. Moreover, not only did she awaken the Conqueror's Haki at the age of 8, but she is also a user of Mythical Zone Devil Fruit. It can be said that her future is limitless. He believed that as long as Yamato was fooled by him, she would be willing to stay. Then, with his own guidance and sufficient training, her future achievements will definitely be much higher than the original trajectory. Mythical Zone Fruit user? Robin was surprised. She didn't expect that Yamato would not only have the rare Conqueror's Haki but also be a rare Mythical Zone Fruit user. She is worthy of being the daughter of Kaido, the beast. Well, similar to the Rat Fruit model, Scythe Weasel that gives the user the ability to control the wind, she has the ability to control ice. Luke nodded and took out a devil fruit from his shadow. By the way, call Kaku over, I believe that guy can't wait any longer. Chapter 212, I will work hard. Luke. On the rooftop, Kaku, who was originally wandering around Dressrosa after receiving a summon from Luke, had some guesses in his mind and ran over excitedly. At the same time, Lucci and Blueno, his two former CP9 companions, all followed curiously. Only Khalifa, who was busy helping Robin manage the intelligence of the Netherworld pirates, was not on the scene. You can't wait. This is yours. Luke smiled and threw the devil fruit peeled off from Orochi over. This is. Thank you so much. Luke. After taking the devil fruit thrown by Luke, Kaku, who had been impatient for a long time, had bright eyes and showed an excited smile. Then he swallowed the devil fruit in one bite. Ugh. But soon, he covered his mouth, and his expression became extremely ugly. It tastes like shit. Is it necessary to be so anxious? Looking at Kaku, whose face was purple and blue, Blueno complained there. Stop talking nonsense, you are all devil fruit users, of course, you can say that. Kaku, who recovered, bared his teeth and fought back. Looking at the members of the Netherworld pirates. One after another, they have powerful devil fruit abilities. Even Khalifa and Lucci have obtained quite amazing devil fruit. How could he not be anxious? Luke, what devil fruit is this? Robin on the side asked curiously. And Lucci also looked at Luke curiously. The other party had a good relationship with Kaku, and he always appreciated Kaku's potential and believed that his ability would not be too bad. Snake fruit, model, Yamato no Orochi. Luke folded his arms and said with a smile, if someone eats it, they can transform into the legendary Yamato no Orochi, with 8 heads, and will definitely become thick-skinned and tough. It greatly enhances the comprehensive qualities such as strength, speed, endurance, recovery, and defense. Since the records on the Devil Fruit Encyclopedia are not detailed, the currently known information is relatively limited. Each head represents a life, which is equivalent to having 8. 8 lives? Not only Robin, Lucci, and Blueno. Even Kaku himself couldn't help but feel surprised. Doesn't this mean that he has to be killed 8 times before someone can really kill him? Such devil fruit ability is a bit too exaggerated, isn't it? If he fights a life and death battle with an enemy, exchanging injuries for injuries, injuries for lives, or even lives for lives, if the strength of the two sides is similar and the difference is not big, wouldn't it be a big advantage? At this time, Kaku let out a roar there, and then his whole body changed at a speed visible to the naked eye. His body kept expanding and stretching, becoming extremely large. Then he turned into a giant snake that was no less than 20 to 30 meters long with a dark green scale. His head turned into a snake head with horns, like a dragon. And there were 7 other completely different snake heads with horns and cloud-like patterns on their body. And it seemed to have an independent consciousness, with a gloomy, cold, sinister, and arrogant expression. TSK, he looked like a monster. Lucci was full of surprise and commented there. Lucci, you're not much better. Kaku, who turned into beast form, looked at Lucci and said unhappily, I like this devil fruit very much. Soon, he learned to change his form again and became a human beast form. His whole body, even the 8 heads, shrank at a speed visible to the naked eye. At the same time, there have also been other changes in his body. His body is covered with eerie scales, 7 other smaller snake heads extend from his shoulders, and a long snake tail extends behind him. Moreover, each head incorporates Kaku's unique feature, a long square nose, while the upper jaw is completely square, which is quite funny. Human beast form? Robin's beautiful face was full of smiles. It's quite exaggerated. Looking at Kaku in human beast form, Lucci and Blueno feel amazed. The snake fruit model, Yamato no Orochi is quite special. Although it can't directly control elemental powers such as wind, thunder, and fire like other mythical zone devil fruit. Luke touched his chin and speculated, but it does have advantages that other devil fruit abilities don't have. The 8 heads all have different consciousnesses. In theory, the user can do 8 different things at once. Hiss. Then, the 8 heads move in different directions and open their mouths. After confirming it, Kaku says, "Indeed, I can feel that each head has a different consciousness, just like a clone that is in tune with my mind and can make different movements at the same time, attacking the enemy from different angles. It is easy to operate, and it takes no effort at all. It's very easy. Suppose it is combined with the 6th style during the battle. In that case, he believes that his combat power will definitely increase significantly, and he can even easily crush his previous self. Even Lucci, who does not use his devil fruit ability, may not be his opponent. So, besides these, can you retract your other 7 heads?" Luke looked at the beast-like Kaku and suddenly asked. "Retract them?" Kaku was stunned. After all, sometimes the extra heads exposed outside are equivalent to your weakness, which is easy to be targeted. Luke nodded. He hit the nail on the head and said bluntly, "In that case, it is possible that several heads will be chopped off at once, which will greatly reduce the advantage of your 8 lives. If you can retract them freely, then you can be more flexible and changeable in battle, and it is not easy to be targeted." "I'll try." Hearing this, Kaku's face turned solemn. This is indeed a problem. Immediately, he tried to control his body. The snake heads with different expressions and tingling scalps kept moving back and forth there. Swish. After a moment, in everyone's surprised eyes, the heads on his shoulder actually shrank back. "Yes, this form is undoubtedly more suitable for fighting, and I can also launch a surprise attack with the other heads." Luke touched his chin and nodded with satisfaction. Kaku is indeed talented. He can gradually adapt to the snake fruit model, Yamata no Orochi, so quickly. Then he smiled and said, "Combined with the characteristics and performance analysis of various aspects of snakes in reality, I think you should also have the ability to release venom or be able to confuse others by shedding its skin or even directly recover from injuries. As for the specifics, you can only slowly dig it out by yourself, Kaku." He believes that the Yamata no Orochi fruit may be more than just having 8 lives. "Yes, Luke." Kaku grinned and clenched his fists. While he was very excited, he was also full of gratitude to Luke. "Thank you very much for your cultivation, I will work hard." After listening to Luke's analysis, he also felt that his own devil fruit ability should be far more than this. There is still room for exploration and further development. Chapter 213, Buster Call. A day's plan begins in the morning. You, the Queen of Dressrosa, are too weak. You need to work harder. The next day, early in the morning, Luke took time out of his busy schedule and patiently guided Violet, the new Queen of Dressrosa, in her training. Then he reprimanded her righteously. In comparison, now, she has already mastered the 6 styles, and Robin, who has awakened the observation Haki and has mastered the armament Haki, has much stronger combat power than hers. "Yes, Luke-sama, I will work hard." Violet, who was sweating profusely, stammered. She was already exhausted and could only respond weakly. Who made her so weak? But what really made Violet feel relieved was Luke really had no interest in this country. He didn't even want to ask about it. He let her do whatever she wanted. She planned to wait until the country stabilized before sending someone to pick up her father, King Riku, and niece Rebecca. "Yes, you need to have such a hard-working attitude." Luke nodded with satisfaction. He patted her face and gave her a lot of encouragement and affirmation. "Work hard and don't slack off. I hope you can make progress next time." After taking a good bath and enjoying a delicious breakfast, he walked out refreshed. He heard early in the morning Yamato's clamor from outside the castle, and there were people cursing and complaining. He is afraid they have been in chaos. If he doesn't take care of it, they might fight. After all, these unruly guys are all arrogant. He, Obask Luke, can suppress them but doesn't expect them to be convinced by another person easily, even if it's the daughter of Kaido, the beasts. "Good morning, Luke." Outside the castle, Robin greeted with a smile. Luke's absurd behavior was no longer surprising to her. "Good morning, Robin." After looking around, Luke looked around and then asked directly, "Have you heard from Shiryu and Lafitte?" After finding out from Violet yesterday that there was an uninhabited deserted island nearby, he ordered Shiryu and Lafitte, the navigator, to take back the island today. After all, Kaido will definitely not give up, and there must be a big war. Violet is his woman, after all. It is impossible for him to put the battlefield in Dressrosa directly after helping her take back her country. So, he chose to place a deserted island near Dressrosa as a battlefield. They have found the deserted island and are on the way back. "That's good." Luke nodded. "By the way, as you expected, The Marines have already started their action. Robin's face was serious, and she said in a deep voice, "The world government has ordered the Marines to launch a buster call against Dressrosa. This early morning, a fleet has assembled at the G1 branch, and a large number of troops have begun to be transported to the New World. And Admiral Akainu has been dispatched. In addition, not only Admiral Aokiji, who is reorganizing the G5 branch, will also participate in this buster call operation, but also the two admiral candidates, Momouzagi and Tokakake, have also rushed to the G1 branch. The Netherworld pirates invaded Impel Downs and emptied the world's underwater prison. Then, they flew over the Red Line in a swaggered manner and directly destroyed the Don Quixote family led by Doflamingo, one of the 7 warlords of the sea and the king on the Dressrosa. Luke had already predicted that the world government and the Marine headquarters would most likely take action. But he didn't expect that the other party would act so quickly. It can be seen that they were really annoyed and forced into a corner. Oh? So fast? Luke raised his eyebrows and chuckled. This is really interesting. I didn't expect that in addition to dealing with Kaido, I also had to deal with the Marines' buster call. But in the final analysis, the current Netherworld pirates are really not afraid of the Marines' encirclement and suppression. Especially this time, the Impel Down was emptied. They have gained powerful combat power. Naturally, they have enough confidence. Are you sure? Robin was not without worries. Although she was full of confidence in Luke. But every time, she recalled the scene of Ohara being destroyed by the buster call in the past. She had some shadows in her heart, and she subconsciously felt a little uneasy. This time, the Marines did not say that it was out in full force, but at least half of its strength was used. There might even be other forces hiding in the dark and waiting for the opportunity. Don't worry, I know what's going on, Luke said confidently. He naturally knew Robin's inner worries. He also wanted to take this opportunity to completely eliminate her fear and shadow of the buster call. But since we still have to deal with the Marines' buster call, the next plan to deal with Kaido, the beast, will have to change a little. Beep beep. At this time, at the entrance of the New World, the G1 branch is adjacent to the Red Line. There were loud and rapid battle alarms that kept echoing. Well-trained Marine personnel gathered there continuously. A large number of warships of different sizes were lined up on the sea, waiting for action. One after another, huge transport ships were slowly coming from the Red Line. There was a large number of Marine elites in them. It's Admiral Akainu. There are also 2 candidates for Admiral, Vice Admiral Momouzagi and Vice Admiral Tokakake, along with 2 other Vice Admirals, all of whom have come from the Marine headquarters. Gulu. Are they going to launch a buster call? I heard that this scale is even more exaggerated than the ordinary buster call. Yes, this time, 30 large warships will be used, and there will be no less than 50 small and medium-sized warships. This can be said to be the largest operation of the Marines in the New World in recent years. It is said that Admiral Aokiji, who is reorganizing the G5 branch, will also come to join. 2 admirals are coming in person. Hiss. In the huge square, the densely packed team gathered there. The Marine officers were tense and whispered to each other while boarding the warships in a tense and orderly manner. Because the force deployed by the Marines this time was really amazing. It can be said to be the largest and unprecedented large-scale operation of the Marines in the New World in the past 10 years. They actually directly dispatched 2 admirals who represented the highest combat power of the Marine headquarters and even 2 admiral candidates. It was really amazing. Such a grand lineup. Even the notorious Emperor of the Seas in the New World would not be able to stop it, right? Chapter 214, Prologue to Warfleet. Admiral Sengoku, the buster call fleet led by Admiral Akainu has assembled. Now, at the Marine headquarters, Maniford. Inside the magnificent fleet admiral's office, Adjutant Branu reported loudly, because Dressrosa is not far from the G5 branch, there's no problem in the logistics support. The fleet is ready to set off at any time to the Dressrosa to destroy the Netherworld pirate and the Riku royal family that is in league with Obaskluk. Tell Akainu that this buster call operation is different from the Ohara operation in the West Blue. Try not to hurt innocent people by mistake. Sengoku said in a deep voice with a solemn expression. He knew that the world government wanted to not only nip the threat of the Netherworld pirates in the bud. They also wanted to eliminate the series of bad deeds of Obaskluk, who caused chaos in Anai's lobby, invaded the Impel Down, and emptied it. Doflamingo, one of the 7 warlords of the sea, also usurped Dressrosa. In order to restore their prestige, they must avoid the adverse effects brought about by events such as the fall of the warlord. They could even kill a chicken to scare the monkeys, just to intimidate other affiliated countries in the New World and warn them not to think that the world government can do nothing to them if they collude with the pirates in the New World. Moreover, the threat posed by the Netherworld pirates is indeed becoming more serious. Not only did they take away tens of thousands of extremely vicious prisoners held in the Impel Down, it is also suspected that they have mastered a method to plunder the devil fruit abilities of others. They really can't just leave it alone any longer. Time is running out. What if the Netherworld pirates really use those prisoners? If the prisoners on those floors were willing to surrender, it would be a huge trouble and potential threat to the Marines. After all, they are all powerful criminals who have committed all kinds of evil, so they are imprisoned in Impel Down. They must not give Obaskluk the opportunity to subdue and reorganize those prisoners. This is the main reason why he, the Fleet Admiral of the Marines, did not argue with the top leaders of the world government but directly agreed to this action. Where is Borsellino? How is his injury? In fact, Sengoku did not want Kizaru to go into battle with injuries. But with float fruit on the other side, they can come and go like the wind. If Kizaru, the user of the glint fruit, is not holding him back, the Netherworld pirates might be able to escape. Fortunately, within the world government, there are medical-type devil fruit users who specialize in serving the world's nobles. Under the coordination of Fleet Admiral Sengoku and with the approval of the top leaders of the world government, Kizaru was able to go to the Holy Land Hospital for treatment. With these doctors using the power of their devil fruit to treat and regulate his condition, Kizaru's injuries recovered faster, and he didn't have to lie down for 10 days or half a month. Furthermore, it would take at least 3 days for the Buster Call fleet to reach Dressrosa from the G1 branch. As long as he rests on the warship, his condition should be much better. After recuperation at the Holy Land, although Admiral Kizaru's injuries have not fully recovered so quickly, they are no longer serious. Branier responded, "It is said that he can be deployed. Then let him stay in the fleet secretly for now and don't show up for the time being. We'll act based on the situation." Sengoku pondered for a moment. The decision has been made. This time's Buster Call concerns the reputation of the Marines and the world government. Failure is not an option. As long as the Netherworld pirates had not yet escaped before the Marines arrived, he was sure that they could completely wipe out the Netherworld pirates, and at the very least, they would take back the prisoners of the Impel Down. If it weren't for the lack of time, he was actually planning to summon the remaining warlords of the sea to join the war. After all, 2 of the 7 warlords of the sea fell into the hands of Obaskluk at once. The remaining warlords, he believes, are more or less unable to sit still. By then, they may not be unwilling to contribute. Understood. On the sea next to Dressrosa, there was a loud bang that shook the earth. Boom. A huge deserted island that is not much smaller than Dressrosa but with sparse vegetation and bare land falls down. In an instant, huge waves arose and surged in all directions. Gulp. Is that for real? They actually moved an island away. It's simply too much. What a power this is. In the town, looking at the island that suddenly fell from the sky and landed steadily next to Dressrosa and the turbulent sea, countless citizens could not help but open their mouths wide and were unable to close them for a long time. Not to mention the lower-class people like them. Even though they already knew how exaggerated Shiryu's abilities were. But when they really saw such a scene, even Law, Kid, Killer, Nami, Perona, and other cadres of the Netherworld pirates were shocked. It has to be said that the ability of the float fruit does have a unique advantage in this regard. Collect a few more small islands and hide them tens of thousands of meters above the sea. When the Marines' fleet arrives, we will throw them over the Marines' heads to give them a little pre-war baptism first. Luke chuckled and said to Shiryu. With the presence of Admiral Aokiji, who possesses the ice fruit, the Buster Call fleet cannot be completely destroyed. But it would not be useless to give them a hard blow so that these Marines would lose some of their troops before they even reach their destination to fight. At least before an all-out war breaks out, they can deal a severe blow to the Marines' morale. No problem, leave it to me. Shiryu smiled, thinking of the upcoming battle. He couldn't help but lick his lips. There was a bloodthirsty light in his eyes, and he seemed eager to try. The ability of the float fruit really makes him feel addicted. The feeling that he's omnipotent and can do whatever he wants really makes him feel a little bit elated. Suppose Luke's ability wasn't so terrifying that it made people completely lose the courage to resist. In that case, he might actually have the idea of leaving the Netherworld pirates and working on his own. Of course, this is just a thought. There is no other reason if he really dared to betray Luke. Even if he could escape to the ends of the earth with the power of the float fruit, as long as he was still in this world, he would not be able to escape the shadows that are everywhere. Sooner or later, he will be found by the all-pervasive Black Shadowkin army. Maybe he won't even know how you died. This monster, who is both incredibly young and incredibly strong, can really bestow power upon his subordinates, and it's not just talk. But Luke-sama, I have just obtained the power of the float fruit, and the power I can exert is limited. I am still far from being as good as Shiki. Dispelling those random thoughts from his mind, Shiryu stayed there to remind him, even if I put down the thriller bark and those fleets, I can only control 4 or 5 islands at the same time. 4 or 5 seats? That's a little short. Luke frowned. But this was also within his expectations. After all, it has only been a short time since Shiryu obtained the float fruit, so it is already very good to be able to achieve this level. But it's barely enough to show our power. After all, I don't expect to be able to destroy the entire Marines fleet in one go. Chapter 215, Frozen Ancient Giants Corpso? It was noon, and the sun was shining brightly. A shadowkin emerged from the shadow of King's Plateaus and reported what it had just learned from the Marines' G1 branch. Kizaru? I see. Luke chuckled. He looked at the people around him and said with a smile, 3 admirals are out, plus 2 admiral candidates, plus 5 other vice admirals from the Marine headquarters, and more than 30,000 elite Marines. And a total of more than 80 various big and small warships. He really didn't expect it. The Marines even sent out the injured Kizaru. It can be seen that they are determined to completely eliminate the Netherworld pirates in Dressrosa. TSK, the Marines really think highly of us. Shiryu exclaimed. If he had heard such a scene in the past, he would definitely turn around and run without hesitation. But the current Netherworld pirates may really be qualified to fight against these guys in the Marines. Moreover, with the ability of his float fruit, even if they really can't beat the Marines, they can evacuate calmly at that time. There is no need to worry at all. Besides, the Marines do not know the true strength of the Netherworld pirates. Once the war starts, the true strength of the Zombie Corps and the Shadowkin army alone will be enough for them to drink a pot. Shiryu, come with me to Punk Hazard later. Luke smiled and said, I was not planning to retrieve those things so quickly. Since the war is about to start, there is no need to be polite to the world government. At first, he was not planning to overstimulate the world government. But since the Buster Call was launched so quickly, and they were not going to give them time to gain a foothold in the new world, then there is no need to deliberately restrain himself. Punk Hazard? Shiryu was surprised. Isn't that the research base of the Marines' scientific forces? Didn't you take Vegapunk and those scientists away? Are we going to take those experimental facilities directly? He remembered that Luke had sneaked in there in advance and kidnapped the world's #1 genius scientist and a dozen other scientists. It's all published in the World Economy News. Since the location has been exposed, there's no need to hide it anymore. Just move the Punk Hazard here. Luke chuckled. Although in order to avoid any Vivre cards that were hidden in a corner and could not be easily found, those experimental bases could not be kept directly. However, the expensive experimental equipment inside, which cost the world government countless resources and time to build, could be used by him and moved directly to Derma 66. What's more, there is Wapol, the Munch fruit user. There will be no waste at all. Swish. Soon, threads of black shadows surged and directly covered him and Shiryu at a speed visible to the naked eye, and then they sank into the shadows. Beep. Beep enemy attack. Damn. It's Obaskluk and the former head jailer of Impel Down. Why did they come here? Didn't Dr. Vegapunk and those scientists get taken away by him? Quick, report to the headquarters and ask for help from the G5 branch. At the Punk Hazard, Luke and Shiryu had no intention of hiding their trace. Their arrival directly caused great panic. Float. Shiryu touched the ground with one hand. Directly activated the ability of the float fruit. Boom. The sea was surging, and the whole island was shaking violently. Under the horrified eyes of countless Marines and researchers, Punk Hazard rose directly from the ground. As if it had lost gravity, it floated in the sky. Then, it flew directly in the direction of Dressrosa. Buzz. Luke's eyes turned stern, and then a flash of red light flashed in his eyes. The extremely terrifying Conqueror Hockey swept out directly. On the entire island, there were thousands of Marines guards and 2,000 or 3,000 researchers, government personnel, and even thousands of prisoners who were sent here to serve as experimental subjects. One by one, their eyes rolled back, and they were directly knocked unconscious one after another. Shadow Torrent. The next second, Luke activated the ability of the Shadow Fruit. Clatter. It's not just the shadows of those living people that got taken away. On the island, be it rocks, plants, snakes, insects, rats, and ants. Endless black shadows surged and gathered into a huge torrent, drowning in all directions and crushing the unconscious Marines and researchers, then piled them all together. Damn it. What is this? Ah. Even the few Marine officers who were still conscious had nowhere to escape. Some prisoners who were strong and did not faint at the impact but were handcuffed and unable to escape were also among them. They were directly crushed mercilessly.